Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Happy Wacky Wednesday. Oh my gosh, it was the first ever, only ever VP debate between Tim Walz and JD Vance last night. And it was very interesting. It was very interesting. I don't know if it was interesting in terms of what was said specifically. It was interesting in terms of what it represented to me. Okay.
Okay. Interesting. What did it represent?
It represented the return to normalcy, Adam. Oh my God. This debate was so refreshing. I
Oh yeah.
forgot, Adam. I forgot what a normal political debate felt like without Donald Trump. It was amazing. I was like, this is what it used to be. This is what debates used to be. They'd be like, well, kind of a little boring, good policy discussions, good visual imagery of like anecdotal stories. There'd be some back and forth, but at the end of the day, they would shake hands and walk away. And you're like, American politics. It's beautiful.
Well, I did notice one thing that was really outside the norm, and that
What's that?
is, well, after the fact, everyone was wanting Vance to be the candidate. Everyone was like, "Why isn't Vance
Yeah.
running for president? Like, why?" So normally, I don't know if you know this, but traditionally, the
Yes.
candidate tries to pick someone less intelligent than them,
Yeah.
right? Less charismatic, less intelligent, someone who's not going to do an excellent job in a debate, right? There
Right,
just
right.
nobody watches the VP debate. This person you pick because they're a warm body and they can get you a state that's in play, right? That's what you
Right.
do. So,
hmm
but this was unusual. I'm thinking, oh wow, I can't wait for 2028 when this guy's actually on the top of the ticket. Right?
It is funny because, I went to this debate with very low expectations for JD Vance. He has not shown good before this. I don't think he's shown good charisma. He still has a vibe problem, and I'll talk about that a little later. But he hasn't shown, like, I don't know, good ability to handle himself in these situations, to my estimation. We played that clip from a few weeks ago where it was like, Tim Walz in the sandwich shop versus JD Vance awkwardly in the donut shop, acting like he's never been in a donut shop in his life. And so I kind of went into this with like very low expectations. And I think he did very well. He did very well for himself. And you're right, because I had the exact same thought as I'm watching this debate and it's over. I'm like, if he was the candidate instead of Donald Trump, I
Oh,
think
it's over.
Kamala
Yeah,
would
it's
have been
over.
like, yeah, like there's no fucking way Kamala would win. And it really it's so interesting because there's like there's this um majority of people in the Republican Party, but a minority in the overall population of the country who are just so diehard for Trump. And it's like he's just not what the majority of Americans want. Because yes, if Vance was if Vance was debating Kamala Harris, a few weeks ago, this would be over. She would look like a total buffoon, and he would look like a serious candidate.
Yeah, he was so good. I particularly like the thing that he constantly did where he says, "But let me answer the question." Which is like even if he doesn't answer the question, you're going to remember, "Oh, he said,
Right.
but let me answer the question over and over again." I'm going, that's a good debate tactic there.
Yes. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
you're
he
right.
was full of excellent debate tactics.
He was. You're right. And because he would say, and it's funny because I want to play a clip of it. We're going to play some clips of this. He actually, at first, I thought he fucked up because he did the Kamala Harris, I was raised in a middle class family line. But even that line, he was able to sell it so much better than Kamala did. And he would phrase it, he would frame it like often where he'd say, I'm going to answer the question. Let me say something first. He'd say something first, and he'd either go back to it or he'd kind of like go back, but not go back to it. So at least it gave you the sense that he was not dodging the question, even though there were uh, two or three questions he 100% dodged, which we'll talk about. And it was just he just handled himself so much better than Kamala did, than Walz did either. So it was very surprised. I was very surprised by his performance. But again, it was just I was happy because it felt like a normal pre-Trump political debate between two candidates, and it was very refreshing.
Yeah, there was some camaraderie between them, even though they're opponents in this election. Yeah,
Exactly.
I completely agree with you in the fact that it's a breath of fresh air for people who pay attention to politics and are really just interested in policy prescriptions. So
Well,
it's
and it's interesting because I wonder for like people who only got into politics recently under Trump, like they're not going to have that experience at all because they're not going to remember what it was like in the before days.
yeah. Well, Trump brought a bunch of people in that don't even follow politics because
Right.
Trump is a celebrity, right? He did
Yes.
Celebrity Apprentice forever. He's someone famous. So he brought a bunch of people who just were not voters into the coalition. Now, Republicans were along for the ride because they thought, oh, wow, these are going to be Republicans once Trump leaves. But I'm
Mhm.
not so sure they are. I'm not. They're probably going to go back to their lives watching reality television and just ignoring politics.
Maybe I'm not. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So also, I want to talk about who won the debate. Now, obviously, it seems like from what we're talking about, it should be clear that we both think JD Vance won. But
Well, I just before we go too far, I want
yeah,
to say
okay.
like this was not a surprise to me. We've
Hmm.
been watching Vance for a while, and I thought Vance. We covered an interview recently, and I was like, Vance just killed it in this interview. So, and look, I like Vance. So,
Hmm.
aside from the cat lady comments, which I were obviously done long before he was ever a presidential candidate. Like I thought he was like a smooth operator, someone who is good in the political realm. So this was not a surprise to me. I kind of
Well,
expected Vance to kill it.
it was a surprise to me in terms of that Walz seemed like he was pretty good in these situations, and
Okay,
he
so
was not.
Walz's
Walz's
terrible job was a
Walz's
surprise to
bad
you.
performance, yeah, yeah.
He in the very beginning, I was like, oh my god, this guy's nervous as fuck.
It was super weird. Yeah, for the first like 10 minutes, he was hyper nervous. And I'm like, what is going on at the Kamala Harris headquarters? Are they like pumping cocaine in the water supply there? Like, why is Kamala and Walz so nervous? These are hardened politicians that have been doing this for like over a decade. Why are they so nervous in these situations? It makes no sense to me. It's very weird. The whole
Yeah,
thing's very strange. But so on the who won front, now I'm going to put a little asterisk here because I think if you watch the debate in its entirety, you say, okay, JD Vance won. But if you didn't watch the debate and all you're going to see is clips that are generated, I think you're going to say Walz won. Because even though I think Vance won overall, I don't think he really generated like the clippable moment to own Walz. There was one moment that Walz really looked bad, and we're going to play that. But Walz generated Walz and the commentator and the host actually generated the clippable moments on Vance that will get spread around. And we're going to play those. The first clip was Vance arguing with the host and saying, like, you said you weren't going to fact check me. And that looks really, they're just going to end the clip there. And then people have already done this, and that looks really bad. And the second is the January 6th clip where Walz asked Vance if Trump lost the election, and Vance completely dodges the question. He completely
yeah.
dodges it. And Walz points that out and says, like, that looks really bad. And it does look really bad.
Wow. Yeah. You're right. You're totally right. Yeah. Life is completely unfair.
Mm-hmm.
He
And
he pulls a great performance, and all anyone is going to remember are these little fuck ups. That was the exact same analysis we
yep.
had on the interview that he
Yep.
did, where he wrongly said we created a story,
Yep.
and that's the only thing that made it out into the public. Even though he just annihilated in that interview, he did such an amazing job, but that one little slip up.
Mm-hmm.
It's bizarre to me that people it's invisible to people how the cards are completely stacked against Republicans just with the media bias because you have to dial in a perfect performance, a 10 out of 10 to get past the media. The media is going to
Right.
zero in on that one little fuck up and they're going to blast it to kingdom come and you're not going to get a fair hearing at all. So
Well, I think there is a bias against Republicans generally, but I think that is amplified like tenfold in the bias against Trump. And so if
right.
you're Trump or you're associated with Trump, that bias gets turned up to 11. Because like it was, I mean, to me, it's very obvious that the hosts were not. Trump supporters at all
Oh,
and
oh,
did
you
not like
think?
Trump.
Oh, you
Yeah, even
think?
slightly. So, that was very apparent. But in terms of the who won thing, before we look at some clips here, I get the way to conceptualize it is that both candidates have an offense and a defense. And the defense is how do they want to portray themselves to the country? And the offense is how do they want to portray their opponent to the country or their opponent's campaign. And so I think the reason that it's pretty clear that Vance won this is that on the defensive side, he did pretty excellent. He kind of wins this debate. He was very unfavorable in terms of the polling. Everyone kind of hated him for the most part in the polling. People kind of still looked at him as weird or stupid, saying the cat lady stuff is just kind of like this not very charismatic guy. And he came in and he looked very like normal, chill, cool, calm. It's kind of interesting. He was sort of channeling, in my opinion, the like George W. Bush 2000 era compassionate conservative vibe. Like I'm a conservative, but I'm a compassionate conservative. Like I feel, I understand, what moderates and even what liberals feel like.
Yeah,
Now,
that was my take too. Like compassion was the
right.
his go-to move, which I was like, this is slick as well.
Yeah, very
Whenever
slick.
there was whenever anything came up about the hurricane or,
Mm-hmm.
people suffering or Walls made a comment about a school shooting, like he just pulled out the compassion and was like, "Oh,
Yes.
yes, this suffering is horrendous.
Yep.
We have to think of these families." Yeah, that was a slick move.
Yeah, no, so he really scored. Now, I mean, obviously the compassionate conservative thing with Bush ended up turning out to be 100% lie once he won the presidency. But we'll see with Vance. Vance did a very good job. You're completely correct at painting himself as a compassionate, caring,
You think
empathetic
it's an
human
act?
being.
You think it's an act? You think he's
I
gonna
have no clue. I have absolutely no clue.
Okay.
So, well, this kind of comes up with the vibe thing is, because I'm like taking notes when I'm watching this, and when I'm like looking at the computer, like typing notes, and I'm listening to Vance, I'm like, oh, he's doing really good. And I look up at him and when he's talking, and I'm like, there's something off about him that I just can't.
Vance?
Yeah, like, but it's only when I look at him. It's got to be something visual. Because when I'm listening to him, I'm like, okay, it's fine. When I look at him, something doesn't sit right. And I think this is where my guess is. This is where I'm thinking here. He has very piercing blue eyes. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's got the
But
limbo ring game going.
he's got very strong limbo rings. Um, but that combined, I think, but that alone wouldn't be the problem. I think what's going on here, this is my guess, is I think it's the piercing blue eyes combined with the fact that he has sort of a monotone voice, combined with the fact that he has a monotone facial expression. Like he doesn't have a lot of inflection in the way that he speaks, and his expressions are very minute or very muted. And so that combined with the piercing eyes, to me, it's like confusing because it seems almost like what he's saying, like his facial expressions and his tone of voice do not match what he's saying.
Hmm.
That's my
You just
guess.
I you don't like JD Vance. It's like look, I don't like Kamala Harris. I'm willing to just say just I don't like her, okay? She rubs me the wrong way. But I don't know. I'm not sure I could say what it is about Kamala Harris that I specifically don't like. It's interesting that you realize you don't like JD Vance and you're kind of looking, what is it?
Well,
I don't know that you're
because
ever gonna find that though.
well, no, because the reason that to me I'm talking about this because as I said, I'm sitting here, I'm listening to him speak, and I'm typing, and I'm like, oh, he's doing good, and this is a good answer. And then I look at him, and it's like my perception changes. So there's something about
Right.
the visual, his
Oh,
something
okay. I
about
gotcha.
his visual appearance that is off-putting to me.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing to other people because people have talked about that he has a weird vibe in general. And so that's why I'm saying like it's got to be something visual because I'm listening to him, fine. I look at him, I'm like, hmm. So I'm just guessing here. I think it's my guess. Now this might be a little mean, but I honestly think that JD Vance has Asperger's or some kind of low level of autism, and that's why he has that sort of monotone inflection and very muted expressions. And I think that conflicts with what he's saying. So when I look at him, I go, huh. His facial expressions aren't matching what he's saying. But if I'm just listening to him, I'm like, oh, he's doing great.
Wow. Okay.
That's just my guess. But well, but and also on the visual side here, though, since we're talking about visuals, Tim Walz had a horrible visual game. Oh my God. I don't understand how this even happened because these candidates presumably they go and they do this sort of practice, this debate practice stuff. And it was like Tim Walz, he has resting panic face. Did you did you get that too? Like he would look straight at the camera, and we're gonna show some close of this. He'd look straight at the camera, and he has like this scowl, like he's like a natural scowl. So he naturally looks like he's just so terrified to be where he is and wants to just get the fuck out. And then he would keep looking at Vance and his profile. He looks nervous. Then he would look back to the camera, and he looked like it was like a cartoon. He just looked nervous. He's like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And then he'd look down and it's like he's like writing a fucking novel. He was like writing so much. I'm like, "What is he writing?" His
Please
so
don't, please don't ask me about Iraq. That's what he's writing over and over again.
I guess like Tim Walz, he just had the most terrible visual performance and it was shockingly bad. I don't know how he went through his debate training and no one was like, "You got to work on your facial expression. This is really bad."
I love how Vance in the very beginning mentions that he went to Iraq. It's just like to put the shiv into Walls a little bit. That
Right.
completely knocked him off his game.
Right. Right.
He's like,
Oh,
"Oh,
so
by
but
the way, remember you ran from Iraq, Walls, remember? And well, I went and served in Iraq."
right. Well, see, this is part of where I
That's gotta get inside his head, right?
maybe that was it. But this is where I think like
Look, you got
Vance,
an authentic guy standing right next to the biggest phony in the world.
right. Well, this is
Yeah.
where I think Vance was weak. So like on the defensive side of the debate, Vance did fantastic. He painted himself exactly the way he wanted to paint himself. I think he was able to, like if you watch the debate, obviously, he was able to overcome the negative image that most Americans probably had of him. So that was like huge boon to him. That's why people I think would say that Vance won the debate. On the offensive
Well,
side,
hold on. That you're talking about the media crafted narrative, right? That he's a couch
yes.
fucker and all this.
Yeah,
He's
yes, right.
weird.
Yes.
It's funny. It's funny that the weird thing was actually started by this guy right here, Tim
Tim
Walls.
Walz. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
That's true. That's funny. So,
Yeah.
so
Who
good.
seemed weird in this debate to you?
Tim Walz 100% seemed
Yeah,
like 1,000%
exactly.
more weird than JD Vance did, which was interesting and
Exactly.
unexpected. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, a nice little delicious piece of irony right there in reversal. So
Hugely.
JD
Yeah.
Vance defensively did fantastic. Offensively, I think this is where he was weak. He needed, I think, on the offense thing, the two things that he would want to paint Kamala Harris or Tim Walz as number one, that they're like extreme leftists, like they're radical extreme leftists. It's kind of like the thing that they want to paint. And then also that all the problems that the country's facing is Kamala and Biden's fault now. And I think
See, I
Vance did
completely
do that.
disagree on the leftist stuff because it comes off as
Mhm.
conspiracy theory. Like I think it hurts Trump when he goes in that direction, and I think Vance
Mm.
is smart enough to know that as soon as you start throwing the commie label around, everyone thinks you're a conspiracy nut.
Well,
Like
okay.
he's better off staying away from that stuff and just talking about policy. You can talk about
Mhm.
policy without calling someone a commie.
No. I'm not saying that he should call them commies. I agree with you. That'd be stupid,
Yeah.
right?
Well, you said
I'm
leftist.
well, I'm saying no, he should call them radicals.
Okay.
Radical. I don't even think he should use the term leftist. He should say that they're radicals. And like there was a good opportunity, like the opportunity he complete. I'm very shocked by this. When the abortion question came up, the moderator specifically asked Tim Walz the question about, you signed a bill or Trump accused you of signing a bill that would allow, a woman to get an abortion, 9 months. And
Mhm.
this should have really been the time for Vance to just pound that. Like, this is a radical belief system. This is a radical, crazy thing. And he just completely didn't do that. He was very just defensive. He didn't pound Walz or Harris on this kind of the radicalness claim of what the Republicans would want to do with when they're attacking them.
Right. Yeah. Abortion is a tough issue for Republicans because I do think Republicans are a lot of the Republican base is out of step with the American people. So I
Yes.
did. Did you see Trump tweeted out in like all caps and bold? I would never sign an abortion ban. He was he was so triggered over the abortion talk.
Yes. Well, I'm
Yeah,
gonna play that clip because you're right. Obviously, Trump and Vance know that their party, that their position and their party's position is
is
completely out
unwinnable.
of
Yeah,
step with the abortion feelings nationwide because of the answers Vance gave, which the abortion part was like horrible for them. And he gave like the worst answer in response to that, which I want to play because it was really weird. But just, yeah, so they obviously know that. But I do think that he was able to, I don't know if he was able to, but he did try to hit the like painting Kamala as like, as you know, all the problems that the country's facing now is Kamala's fault. He did an okay job with that. But again, I don't know. I think his defensive game was like A plus, his offensive game, like C, not great. And then with Tim Walz, the same thing. I'm not sure, like defensively, I'm not sure what Tim Walz is even needed to do defensively. Like the only problem he really has is the question of like if he's a liar. But even then, it's like, I'd say that's kind of like a more minor thing. Like Republicans care about that. I don't know if the average American wandering around knows about these sort of claims of credibility to Tim Walz. So it's weird to me because I feel like he could have almost foregone like even caring about defense. He was coming to this debate with very favorable ratings polling wise anyway. He kind of has that like affable Midwestern, friendly old guy vibe, and people seem to like that. And so I think he could have just completely forgone on defense and just gone on the offense, which is what he wants to do is he wants to paint Vance and Trump as weird, radical extremists who are threats to democracy and dangerous, right? That's what the offense of the Kamala Harris campaign wants to do. And on that, I
but
feel
the
like Tim
problem with
Walz
that
didn't
is
even
you can't do
try.
it. Look, the problem with that is you can't do it in front of JD Vance, right? You can do it in a media interview. You can have your media lapdogs spread uh, completely false rumors around about you. But when you're standing next to the guy and he's obviously not weird, he's obviously massively articulate, he's
Mhm.
obviously very intelligent, he's obviously going to respond to any bogus claim you try to throw out there. You can't do it. You just can't do it. What's he going to do? How's he going to make him
I
look like a
disagree.
weirdo?
I disagree completely because if you notice, JD Vance does this thing, and maybe it's not super noticeable, where when he gets flustered, his tone of voice doesn't change. He has a very monotone way of speaking. So
When did he
maybe
get
it's
flustered?
well,
What got
hold
him
on.
flustered?
Let me answer the
Okay.
question. Let me finish. Okay. When JD Vance has a very monotone, cool way of speaking. So when he gets flustered, it doesn't seem super noticeable because his voice doesn't change that much. But what he does
Okay,
do when he
I
gets
got you.
flustered, when he does get flustered, he says the wrong thing. This is like what happened in the CNN interview where he said about the whole we're creating stories. When he gets flustered, his tone of voice doesn't change, but then he'll say something fucking stupid.
Right. And
And
that's when
so
they can pounce.
exactly. And that was the clip of, the one time that Wallace got him really bad was the whole um, do you think that the election that Donald
That
Trump
sounds
lost the
bad.
election?
Yeah.
Right.
That
That sounds
sounds
really
bad
bad.
line.
And it was the same thing even when he
Yeah.
got flustered with the host, where the host, who I thought the host was wrong when the host fact checked him, like the way he phrased it was so stupid. He said, like, oh, I thought you agreed you're not going to fact check me. Well, that makes it sound like you're wrong, right?
Yeah, it does.
And so from
He
Walz's
had like
perspective,
two big slip ups like that.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so from if you're the Kamala Harris campaign, from Wall's perspective, that's really what you should be trying to gun for, saying, okay, we need to knock Vance off his game. We need to keep trying to get him to say like weird things that we can clip and put out there and be like, look, this is cat lady comment 2.0. This is eating the dogs 2.0. Like you want to keep trying to force him into that. And I think Walls actually theoretically could do that. Like you don't want to do like the like angry, aggressive, like beating him because that's not going to work. But you want to do the sort of like just constantly just keep questioning him. Like you said this, you said this, you said like the national abortion ban thing. He made some comment where he said he was in favor of a national abortion ban, and that should just been like keep pounding on that, keep pounding on that, make him say something, make him slip up and say something because one of Vance's like something that is like a good thing and a bad thing for a politician is that Vance tries to answer the question. He doesn't seem like he just pivots away into nothing. And so I think that's kind of what gets him in trouble is that sometimes he wants to answer the question and some of the questions don't have good answers. And then he'll say something that sounds awful.
So I think really the only thing to come out of this debate, because presidential debates don't matter. Well, let's be real here.
You mean
Is
VP debate
yeah,
or just in general?
uh, yeah, vice presidential debates. Thank
Right.
you. There's a million Republican donors calling JD Vance today, talking to him about 2028. I
Yeah, that's a
guarantee you,
good
because
point.
he's eligible either way. Like if Trump wins, he's eligible. He'll be vice president, right? He's in a good standing for running in 2028. If he loses, he's in good standing for running in 2028. So
Right.
his phone is technically is probably ringing off the hook today with people in the Republican Party going, "This is our guy. He's the man. We're going to
Mhm.
back him." And I'm curious, you've read a bunch of these Trump books too, and every one of them says, well, as soon as somebody starts outshining Trump, he's gone. Like Trump cannot handle someone with their star shining brighter than Trump's. And
Mhm.
look, I saw all over Twitter, like people were doing memes where they had reversed Trump Vance and they had Vance on top. Vance Trump. See, Trump does not, oh man, Trump does not like that.
Yeah,
That's got to be some conflict between the two of them.
that's a great point. And yeah, I wonder if that will cause conflict going forward because I mean, you're right. The number one thing that came out of this debate is that it cemented Vance's political career.
Oh,
I
hell
mean, well, it
yeah.
depends on, obviously if Trump wins and something disastrous happens, that's not going to be the case. But if Trump loses, Vance, or if Trump wins and everything goes fine, then Vance is like really cementing his position as the 2028 with this performance. So, I mean, that's, good news for Vance in that regard.
And he owes the Trump kids so much for that, right? Like when he wins in 2028,
Oh
who's he
yeah,
got to
because they
thank for it?
right the Trump kids for choosing him. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go. So yeah, very interesting. So let's watch some
Don
clips here.
Jr. Don Jr. and what's the other kid's name? I can't remember.
Frank Trump.
Yeah. Both of Trump's kids, basically. Trump was going to pick, who's this? Who was the guy Trump was going to pick? I can't even remember his name now. And he
I
got
don't know.
talked out of it by his kids, and they got talked out of picking that guy. I think Bergamot was his name or something like that. Some geezer. They're like, no, we love Vance. You got to pick Vance.
Right, right.
So, yes, none of this would happen. 2028 wouldn't happen if it wasn't for Don Jr.
Okay, so I want to play we're gonna play a bunch of clips here. I want to play in the beginning. This is
Oh, it's Eric. Eric is his name.
Eric, right? This is the first question, and this is Walz's first response. So you can just see it's very strange to me how weirdly nervous Walz was in the beginning of this debate.
Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners.
Yeah, he's got terror in his eyes. It's just like horrified.
Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago, a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to be able to.
So, and it's interesting because like these are good attacks against Trump, but the way they're being delivered just completely undermines the credibility of the attacks.
If people are just listening to the debate, it's not as bad as if they're watching his face.
Even if you're listening, there's a lot of like ums and pauses.
No,
and
it's
like,
not
it's
great.
just, no, it's weird. It's weird to me.
To draw on the coalitions to bring them together, understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother.
At first, when he said this, I went, oh my God, he did the Kamala thing. How did he do that? Why would he do the Kamala thing?
He did it because he's making a contrast. He's saying, look, I was really raised in a middle-class family.
Right.
I am authentic. Kamala Harris is not authentic. Did you notice Tim Walz, when they did the side shot, he was like, I'm going to write something. No, I'm not going to write something. Yes, I am. No, I'm not.
Yeah, I did.
It's like, it just screams,
really
oh my God, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, no, all of the visuals for Walz were really bad. But no, you were completely correct. And this is why I wanted to play this part for like a couple minutes, for like a couple seconds, is that when I first heard that line, I said, oh my God, he did the Kamala thing. But then you're right, he sells it in a way that's so much more believable than Harris has ever sold it.
Yeah, it's a great move. He's basically saying, look, you want to vote for a middle-class kid? Right here. You got an authentic one.
Introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly,
see, Republicans love this. To pull them up from their bootstraps. They're like, look at this. Look at this.
Yeah.
A bootstrap kid.
And he sold it so much better than Kamala. He had I don't know what it is, if he just has a better energy in the way he's selling it. It seems more sincere. It's much shorter. He was just like, boom, my mother had a drug problem, my grandmother had this problem, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's just like boom, 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 boom. Right. Or maybe it's just like a male female thing. Like he's speaking in a more masculine way where he's just like, here, fact, as opposed to like this. Let me give you this long, winding fucking story where I paint you this horrible picture that no one cares about because you fall asleep halfway through. So
I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling.
Let me jump ahead here. I want to show you, this is like a good example of like the weird Tim Walz faces that we got throughout the debate.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And
wait, look, what is this?
Oh my God.
He looks so concerned. Like, what is happening?
He's like, oh my God, this guy's destroying me.
Yeah. Like, it looks like Vance is a doctor telling him he's like dying or something. Like, what is this face? This resting terror face.
This is imposter syndrome is what it is. That's exactly what's going on here.
I mean,
he's like, oh my God, I'm an imposter. Look at this guy. Why am I even on the same stage with him?
What's what it looks like? I mean, I can't imagine that's what's actually happening. Tim Walz has been, he was in the Congress. He's been a governor forever. Like, this is a seasoned politician. This is why it's so strange to me that both him and...
What state is he a governor of?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Remember, he was this
Okay.
governor, you know, with the BLM stuff. So it's just like it's just weird. He's a seasoned politician. Kamala Harris should be a seasoned politician. That's why I just can't wrap my mind around why they're so bad at some of these things. But
Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now. And
look, he's got like this resting, anxious grimace. It's just, look at that. He's like, oh, I don't want to be up here. Please, can I go back? Is it almost over?
can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's terrified.
He's like, it looks like he's worried that he has to go to the bathroom and he's afraid if he farts, like a little bit of sharp will come out. That's what it looks like to me. So
Not great.
no,
Not
no,
great.
very bad. Very bad. Now, again, it could be the same issue with Kamala, where most people are listening to this on their phone, so maybe it doesn't matter. You know, maybe most people aren't going to actually see the visual image of the whole thing. So
Yeah, Thal pointed out something in the super chat that I do remember when I listened to it. The fundamental. He kept saying, Walz kept saying fundamental over and over again. So
yes.
yeah,
Okay,
which is not great.
Let me jump ahead here. So this is, Vance talking about the hurricane, and he paints a good image of the tragedy and the good framing. And he paints an interesting framing on the whole environmental question that I haven't really heard Republicans bring up. So I wanted to play because I thought this was a particularly good answer for Vance.
Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane, because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of two grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then of course afterwards to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love.
I do like, and this is a good move here. I do like that he's like, and I'm sure Governor Walz joins me. So he's kind of like bringing in some level of unity into the conversation, which I appreciate.
Yeah, look, he pulls a completely compelling emotional case. I just would someone with Asperger's be able to do that? I mean, you have to understand the emotional appeal of the argument, right?
Well, you can learn. I mean, you can learn that stuff.
Okay.
Maybe he does. I'm just saying he has a weird something about his visual aesthetic doesn't sit with me, and I can't quite figure out what exactly it is.
No, we also talked about Kamala Harris just not being able to pull up these kinds of emotional situations, these very visual emotional situations. You see a grandmother and her granddaughter standing on a rooftop, like in a storm. I mean, obviously the visuals are off the charts, right?
Yeah, no, the way he framed it, I mean, it's this horrible thing, but the way he framed it was masterful.
Yeah, compelling. Yeah, very compelling.
Getting you to think about this. You know, this is the last
Could Kamala
picture that
Harris
ever
do that?
because they died. No, she completely fails at this.
Right. She would see that and just be like, whatever.
No, she would talk about it very slowly and be like, the human tragedy of it all. Can you believe it? Like, she's not painting a picture. She's just like,
I saw
sending
two
out
people who were burdened by what was going on around them.
Right, exactly. You're like, oh God.
Them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we
This is so brilliant right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, let's not get into a big fight over who believes the science. Let's just look at what we would do if you were correct about the science. And we're doing all that already, bitch.
Mhm.
Like, shut the fuck up and stop fear mongering about climate change. We're doing all we can.
Yeah, no,
I love it. I love it.
It is very interesting to me. Yeah, like either Vance or whoever is working with Vance came up with this concept. It's a very genius concept of
It is.
don't argue about climate change. Instead, be like, okay, well, assuming it's true, the way to fight it is to bring back jobs and energy to America because we do it cleaner than any other country, which is a very brilliant way of framing the argument. And I've never heard a Republican bring this up before.
Yeah, because you do two things. You get the people who believe in climate change, and you don't call the people who think climate change is a hoax idiots. You basically
Right.
say, look, we're going to get what we want regardless. Yes,
Well-
it is a great strategy.
A good sign for, I think, the way the country is going is that both campaigns, both the Trump campaign and Trump is kind of a bull in the China shop. He's not going to listen to anything. But regarding how like Vance is looking at this, because obviously Vance will listen to people, and how the Kamala Harris campaign is looking at this, they both feel the way to win the election is to moderate themselves. So they feel like that's what the voters want. They want this kind of like a moderate thing. So that's kind of, to me, that's a good sign for things to come.
Yeah, no, this is great. There's a reason people are sharing memes of Vance at the top of the ticket on
Right.
Twitter. There really is. I think this gives a lot of people hope, even if Trump loses the election. They're like, well, we'll get him in 2028.
Right. Well, this, to me, I mean, this really highlights Trump's weakness, is that I understand that people like Trump because he has bluster and he says, crazy shit. But if you had someone that had Trump's energy, but could actually quell their
Moderate
ego
themselves.
enough to like
Yeah.
listen to what people were saying and fix their problems, they would be unstoppable. And Trump just can't do that because I guess his ego is just too great.
Yeah.
actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Oh yeah, great answer. So then they talk about immigration, and it's kind of funny. They say that Donald Trump wants to have the largest deportation in history. And how will this work? Will children be separated from their parents? So like if there's a child born here who has birthright citizenship, will they be allowed to stay, and will the parents be deported? And JD Vance completely dodges the question, does not answer it even remotely, does not even try to answer it. He just kind of gives up this, like, he says that, well, the real family separation is that, border control has lost over 300 children. It's like, okay, that doesn't really answer the question at all. So, and then, so that was a
it
pretty
does
bad answer.
throw hypocrisy at the Kamala Harris campaign, obviously, because if they truly cared about child separation, they'd be worried about these kids that are being lost in the country or trafficked. And then even on the trafficking thing,
Mhm.
like the moderator completely spins what he said into an accusation,
Right.
and definitely unfairly. And he comes back and fights that unfair accusation, which I thought was super smooth.
it's one of those things where he gave a good answer. If you're not like, he gave the good answer in terms of he painted the picture. He talked about his mom being addicted to fentanyl and stuff, but he didn't answer the question at all because he very clearly couldn't answer the question. So it showed like a level of rhetoric, but it showed an unwillingness to, I guess, be truthful,
But
to
did
acknowledge that it's crazy.
But did he say, "But let me answer the question"? Because
He did say
as long
that.
as
He
as
did.
long as he says that, it doesn't matter. It's like a get out of jail free card.
He said, "Let me ask the question," and then did not answer the question. So
It's such a smooth move, man.
It
That is
is.
such a smooth operator there.
it is. Okay, so here's like Walz talking. He had, I don't remember exactly where this time code is, but I feel like if I recall correctly, he at first gave kind of a bad answer on the immigration stuff. He's like, Harris is the only person who prosecuted criminal gangs, blah, 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 blah. But he had like a good tag at the end of it that I was like, oh, that was pretty effective.
And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
So I thought it was a pretty good answer. Goes in the bill, talks about how everyone wanted it. Donald Trump didn't, sabotages it. And I thought the line about Donald Trump said he's going to build you a big, beautiful wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. He didn't build the wall and Mexico didn't pay for it. And I'm kind of surprised that hasn't been like a repeated drumbeat for the Kamala Harris campaign. Because I think that is a good line.
Democrats stood in the way of him building the wall, though. They wouldn't let him build it. That doesn't matter? Okay.
No, it's the same way.
Well,
like
when you're making an argument that he stopped the bill for political reasons, can't he just make the argument, well, you stopped the wall for political reasons?
No, that wouldn't work. You can't be like, well, I stopped something that would be good because you stopped something for me that I thought would be good.
But they did it first. They did the wall thing first.
No, but you can't frame it that way. I understand what you're saying, but you can't frame it. Like, you can't frame, I stopped something that'd be beneficial for the country that both sides agreed would be good because of a tit for tat reason. That's not really an effective political way to frame the issue.
I kind of want Kamala Harris to win just so I can say I told you so on the immigration stuff, because they ain't passing no bill. They ain't doing nothing about immigration. It's laughable to think that they will. The incentives are completely against them. It's a win-win for them not to pass immigration because
you're out of your mind.
Look, I know. Look, and the only way that this difference in our opinion is going to be settled is if Kamala Harris is actually wins the election.
I mean, you had immigration problems get so bad that the Democrats had to pivot to becoming strong on immigration, and you think they're just going to sit on their hands and do nothing about it? That's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense.
Look, it's a perfectly logical argument. At least half of their voter coalition doesn't want anything done on immigration, and the other half will accept that the Republicans stood in the way and stopped them from doing it. So it's like a win-win. They get to blame the Republicans for nothing being done on immigration, and they get to make half their voter base happy. So I'm looking at the strictly from an incentive point of view, but I guess you disagree that those are the incentives.
I don't think those are the incentives. If
Okay.
if Kamala Harris wins, and then let's say the Supreme Court overturns the executive order and says the president executive order doesn't have the ability to do this. Okay, which first of all would prove the Republicans 100% wrong when they were saying Joe Biden can do this. He doesn't need a new law. And if that happens, then Kamala Harris, I believe, will 100%, and the Democrats will they'll bring the same fucking bill and they'll try to pass it. And the question is, I guess it will depend on what time in the election we're at. Because I feel like if we're not near, a new presidential campaign, I feel like there's a strong chance Republicans will just pass it quietly. They'll just say, okay, yeah, we just passed this bill.
You think Republicans are going to pass an immigration bill under a Democratic president? No,
If they
they're going to
don't-
they are
if
going to
it's
want to
this-
make Kamala Harris a one-term president. They're
Mhm.
going to sit on their hands for everything. They're not going to pass anything. That's exactly what they did with Obama. It's just, look,
No,
this
I know that the strategy for the Republicans, especially, and it's somewhat true of Democrats, but I think it's especially true of the Republicans, is when the Democrat, and this is kind of really formed when Obama was president, don't pass anything. Don't pass anything. Don't pass anything so that they look weak and they can't get any victories. And I understand that's the strategy. But if they do this a second time, the immigration bill, if the Supreme Court overturns the executive order, proving the Republicans wrong completely, which destroys all their protection about how the president can just do it, and then they try to pass the same bill that was written by a Republican and they just keep saying no, I just think it's going to look so bad. It's going to look so bad for the Republicans
everyone
to do that.
already agrees that they shouldn't pass that bill because it's got a bunch of shit in it that they don't want. They say it's a weak bill. They already framed the bill as
Then all
like
they
a
have to-
Democrat giveaway.
Then all they have
Like-
to do, no, all the Republicans have to do is say, okay, we want to change the bill or amend it to do whatever. We think it allows too many people in before the border closes, or you're giving too many people, we want to lower the number of slots. There's things that they can argue about to change. But if they don't even argue about it, they just say, no, it's a dead bill, we're not even going to look at it, then they're going to look horrible.
They
to the
would
average
never do
American.
that because the politics of that
We'll
is
see.
bad. They would play around with the bill and they go, oh my God, the Democrats put a bunch of stuff in here that we just can't ethically sign off on. Obviously, we want a border bill, but this is like a Trojan horse. That's exactly what they'll say. They'll spin it that way and their coalition will buy it.
No,
The-
okay, wait. Obviously, we're not talking about the diehard Democrats, diehard Republicans. It doesn't matter what happens. They're going to buy whatever the fuck their party sells them. Okay.
Mhm.
What matters is the people who are, the moderates in the middle and what they buy. And I don't think they're going to buy this narrative that the Republicans are going to spin.
Okay, but those people really only matter at election time.
That's what
because they
that's what I'm
decide
talking
who's going to stay in power.
That's what I'm talking about.
I can't for the life of me. You're basically arguing that Kamala Harris is going to sign some tough border bill in the very beginning of her administration. The Republicans are going to just completely offer it up to her, and she's going to be like branded as a collaborator with the enemy and a racist for her entire 4 years by her base. Like,
Yeah, but
in what world does this happen?
wait, but wait a minute. You're sort of understand that what you're arguing two somewhat contradictory things, because you're saying Kamala Harris wouldn't want to sign the bill because, it would offend the Democrats too much. But then you're also saying, well, the Republicans wouldn't want to sign the bill because they don't want to give Kamala a victory.
Yeah, nobody wants to sign the bill.
but it has
That's
to-
why
but
it's
those
not
things-
going to get signed.
Yeah, but it has to be either A, it's going to give Kamala a victory if the bill passes, or B, it's going to hurt her so she doesn't want to pass it. You understand? Like, you're kind of like, it doesn't make sense. Both those things can't be true.
Say that again. Look, my position is very clear. Kamala does not want to pass a bill, and she will not pass a bill. You're the one arguing that she wants to pass a bill and that she will
does,
pass a
yes.
bill. Okay. So how are my positions contradictory?
Because
here?
you're saying that Kamala doesn't want to pass the bill because if she passes it, the Democrats will be mad. But then you're saying that if the
Yes.
Republican, but saying theoretically, if the bill does come to the floor, the Republicans won't pass it because if it passes, it will give Kamala a win.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I'm.
Those are
that's what
not
I'm,
contradictory positions.
they-
Obviously,
they
this is
are.
why I'm saying it won't pass, because the Republicans agree with Kamala. Kamala doesn't want to pass a bill, and the Republicans don't want her to pass a bill.
No, but if it was true
So they're
that
both on the
passing
same
this,
page.
no, because if it was true that passing the bill hurt Kamala, the Republicans would want to pass it. They'd say we shoved through our tough immigration bill and we pressured even the fucking Democrat president to sign it. Eat shit, Kamala Harris, right? And then the Democrats would get all mad and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe Kamala was such a pussy and signed this, super tough on the border bill."
It's easier to spin it the other way, though. It is easier to spin it the other way and save the win for the Republican president, for the Republican
Yeah, but this is what
they
imagine,
want. As long as they're not in power,
Mhm.
they want the border to be a disaster area.
Imagine 2028 presidential debates, election cycle, and you
Mhm.
have immigration is a problem again. People are talking about it. And the Democrats say, listen, we literally tried to pass an executive order. And the Supreme
That gave
Court, the
amnesty to
conservative,
everyone in America.
no, stop.
That's exactly
literally
what the Republicans are
okay.
going to say.
And if the Republican Party just wants to just lie and people just feed
They
it up,
will.
that's fine. Okay,
That's
that's
exactly
fine.
what's going to happen.
Okay, if your argument is just the Republicans are going to lie and people are so brain dead that they'll just eat it up, that's fine. I understand that the base
That is
will
my
eat up-
argument. Yes.
No, okay, but we're not talking about the base. The base on both sides will eat up whatever lie their party feeds them. Okay.
Yes,
that's
I
not what we're
agree.
talking about. We're talking about the moderates. The moderates will not just eat up any dumb fuck lie the Republicans say or the Democrats say. So if the Supreme Court overturns the executive order that shuts down the border, okay, it doesn't give people amnesty, that shuts down the border. And so in 2028, the Democrats say, listen, we literally passed an executive order and that shut down the border. And the Supreme Court, the conservative Supreme Court, threw it out and said, the president can't shut down the border. He needs to have a bill go through Congress. So he went to Congress and we had the toughest immigration bill that was literally written by a very conservative person. And the Republicans keep refusing to pass it because they want the border to be open because it helps their chances in the election. If this goes on for another 4 years, I don't agree with you. I think it's going to completely destroy the Republican Party's credibility of being tough on the border. It's going to do a complete flip-flop on the issue. It'd be giving a total victory to the Democrats.
All right, I'm literally on the verge of voting for Kamala Harris now, just so I can let this scenario play out.
Okay.
Sitch is saying here that a Democratic president is going to take office, and her first order of business is going to be the border.
I didn't say
they are going to fight like hell. Like they're going to fight like they're Republicans to fix the border issue. And the Republicans are going to be fighting to stop them. Scenario seems so far from reality.
You're the one that said the Republicans are going to fight like hell to stop them. I'm saying if the Republicans are smart, they'll just quietly sign the bill and go forward. If they fight the bill, I think it'd be a huge political mistake.
Okay, well, they aren't. First of all, Kamala Harris is not going to fight for a bill. She's not going to fight for an executive order. She's not going to do any of that. And the Republicans are not going to have to fight against her because both parties are just going to silently let the problem continue.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's the incentives are just not there. I can't even fathom a world where she's like, now that I'm elected, I'm going to make the border my top priority.
I don't understand how you keep saying the incentives aren't there. If the incentives aren't there, they wouldn't be there for this election cycle either. They're not going to disappear if the problem reasserts itself. They're just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and the media is just going to ignore it.
No, they wait a minute. Okay. Let's imagine this scenario. Let's say in Kamala's first year of president, if she wins the election, the Supreme Court overturns the executive order, so the border is opened again. And you're going to have a big swell of people coming to the border, and you're going to have numbers that exceed, in all likelihood, the high number of people surging the border than even under Biden. That means
Totally
immigration
agree.
is going to
Totally
get worse.
agree.
So you're going to have
Totally
even more
agree.
stories. Yes, you're going to have more stories
Totally agree.
of we have to house migrants in school gymnasiums and public housing and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just going to be a fucking disaster area. And you're telling me in that scenario, the media's just going to not talk about it and Kamala Harris is just going to pretend like it's not a problem for 4 years?
Yes.
Okay. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. Well, we'll find out.
Okay.
We'll find out as soon as
if it was so
please,
bad,
somebody bookmark this live stream, because
if it was so bad now that Biden had to pass an executive order and Kamala's literally running on being, like strong on the border, I don't see how things get worse in 4 years that she's just going to do nothing about it. It makes no sense.
It's so bizarre. It is so bizarre because they're doing the exact same thing that they're accusing Trump of doing. Like, Walz is basically saying, look, we had a great fucking border bill here. It was amazing. And Trump basically shot it down so that he would have something to run on this election. Well, the only reason they brought the fucking border bill was so they would have something to run on the election. Like, if it actually passes and deals with the problem, they take an issue away from Trump. It's a win, right? If it doesn't pass, then they can say, oh my God, Trump killed the border bill. He doesn't even care about immigration. Why are you voting for him? We care more about immigration. It's like a win-win. So I just, the idea that this border bill was only, this is the policy prescription for the American people that we love and we super want to deal with the issue. No, they only did it for political gain themselves. Everyone here is acting for political gain alone.
Obviously, all politicians are doing things for political gain. That's not really in contention. And I'm saying it's
but
going
as
to be
soon as the election is over,
Democrats...
they have 4 years. They don't give a fuck.
Okay. We'll see. I don't believe that even remotely is the case, but we'll see.
Okay.
So,
we will. Look, I think Kamala has a good chance of winning. So obviously,
Trump getting them to sink the border bill turned out, in my opinion, to be a huge mistake. Because if they passed this border bill, what would happen was Trump would literally still run his campaign on this immigration is this big, massive problem. And people would just think back to the stories they heard before the border bill when the numbers were out of control and say, okay, it's a big problem. And then Kamala's going to say, we passed a border bill. And Trump's going to say, well, your border bill sucks. And the border's still open. And people are just going to believe it, as opposed to giving the Democrats this talking point of saying, Trump is actually stopping us from solving the issue. It's much better for Trump if the Democrats say, well, we fixed it. And Trump could just say, Democrats think they fixed it. The border's still open. They're full of shit. Like, that's a much better position for Trump.
I 1000% disagree, but whatever. We can move on.
Okay, so let me jump ahead here. This is the moment where the hosts get into this fight with J.D. Vance.
Supported by the people who do it, and it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you,
Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank you,
Margaret. The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
So the Kamala Harris campaign, they already clipped it. Where just where he said the rule said you weren't going to fact check me, and they just end it right there.
Yeah, because they're dishonest.
Yeah, that's
completely
the bad.
Dishonest.
That's the bad clip right there for Vance that you're probably going to see everywhere. And I think that this whole thing with him doing this was actually a huge mistake because, as you saw, this quote fact check happens after Walz is speaking. It doesn't happen after Vance is speaking, and she doesn't even directly address it to Vance. So unless you're like really paying attention, you wouldn't even have really noticed or understood why the host was saying what they were saying. It would just kind of slip by. So I think it was a big mistake for him to try to even though he's correct, the hosts are wrong. They said they weren't going to fact check, and this is a fact check, but you should have just let it go.
So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process.
So dishonest. I fucking hate the media.
Wait. First of all, there's one level. Okay. hold on a second. Something is dishonest here. It's something is truthful. It is dishonest in terms of they said they weren't going to do a quote fact check and they did. That is dishonesty. The sassy host is 1000% correct though. She's like, thank you for describing the legal process. He is factually incorrect to call them illegals. They are not here illegally. That is incorrect. He just has a problem with the process in which they are here illegally.
Yeah. Look, and I think the American people want to know about that process, and them trying to shut him up about the process just looks bad.
Yeah, but then he can. Here's the problem, though. He can talk about the process without lying about it.
Okay.
What do you mean? I don't understand how you can say, "Oh, I fucking hate the media. They're lying." When JD Vance is literally lying, calling them illegals in the first place. He's starting the conversation off by lying with the terminology he's using.
Right. You're saying because there's this legal process.
Yes.
That is this. Yeah. Look. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Technically it's incorrect. I'm just saying, like, the spirit of, wouldn't you like to know what makes it legal? I think the American people would like to know. And he's basically trying to outline that, and they're trying to shut him up.
Uh-huh.
So much to get to, Senator.
Are you in favor of that legal process?
With the Haitian thing? I don't know enough about it to even have a strong opinion about it one way or the other.
Well, look,
my understanding
ask
is
JD
that
Vance. He seems to know a lot about it.
No, he does. My understanding is that after the earthquake, there's a bunch of people that were supposed to be deported after the massive earthquake that was paused, and then with basically the collapse of the government, people are able to get asylum.
They were about to lose their legal status because they were set to be deported back to Haiti. This giant earthquake took place, and they're like, "Oh my God, Haiti's a hellhole. Let's not send them back." So they granted them the ability to stay longer, right?
They granted them a protective status, and then once everything fell into chaos with the roving gangs taking over, they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, now those people actually have a legitimate safety concern to be here, so I guess we can grant them this protective status."
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that seems to make logical sense to me in terms of the way our laws are structured. And if you have a problem with that, that's fine, and just say, "I disagree with this process." But calling them illegals is factually incorrect.
Right, but let him just explain the process. Why are you trying to shut him up in a debate? He's the only one talking about policy here.
Well, it's because the reason in terms of the practice here is because he called them illegals. They decided to fact check, and he's trying to say, well, let me explain why I am justified in calling them illegals, even though they're not. He's just justifying the legal process. That's why she said, you just described the legal process. They're not illegals.
Yeah, I got it.
Those laws books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to have
One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
So they literally cut their mics. So yeah, that's why this is what I'm saying. It was a huge mistake even though I agree, the hosts don't look good in doing any of this stuff. Vance doesn't look good either. He should just let it. No one would have even noticed it.
The American people want to know about the immigration process here, and they're talking. But look at this smug look on this lady's face. Like, let's mute their mics. Let's make sure that they can't actually have a legitimate, honest interaction about immigration here. We can't have the American people knowing about this stuff. No wonder nobody believes the press. These are the people standing in the way of you actually being an informed voter. These two people right here.
You're going to get a sigh out of me.
I know. Look,
I don't understand why you're framing it this way. It's so fucking weird to me that you're framing it this way.
Because look, they are going to have a legitimate back and forth on the policy that allowed them to stay here. And as a voter, I would be interested in that back and forth because I don't know about the legal wranglings of the Congress.
I agree with that statement. That's not what I have a problem with.
Okay.
I have a problem is when you're like, the media is trying to stop you from knowing the truth. When you literally this all started because JD Vance literally told a fucking lie.
And he is going to explain the use of his terminology. And they're saying, no, you can't. We've already deemed this a lie. We've already called you a liar. Okay. Shut the fuck up and know your place. Okay. That's exactly what they're doing. Look, I can't.
We can't have a conversation.
You're on their
about this. I
side.
don't know. I'm not
You're
on their fucking side. This is like insane to me. This is so fucking frustrating having a conversation with you about this. Okay. I said the fucking host were wrong to do
Okay,
this.
good.
They agreed that they weren't going to fucking fact check. They were wrong to do this in the first place. However, JD Vance was fucking wrong to lie and to call them illegals. But
well,
then
you called lie.
once
A lie.
wait,
I don't look.
it is a literal fucking lie to call them illegals. They are not. They're literally not illegals. Once the situation happens, once the host wrongfully call him out, even though he did lie, I agree with you. They should have let him talk. My problem is the way you're talking about this is like, for some reason, instead of just saying, yes, JD Vance lied, he shouldn't have done that. Yes, the hosts were wrong to do this in the first place. All you do is just say the hosts are wrong. They're fucking evil. It's like, it's for some reason, JD Vance just fucking skates by and can do no fucking wrong when you're having this conversation.
Look, I would like to make the determination on whether or not JD Vance lied on my own. Okay? And in order to do that, I need to hear the details of the situation. Okay? I was prevented from hearing the details of that situation, so I don't know. You think
They
JD
gave
Vance
him when
lied.
he explained the entire fucking thing.
Okay. Okay.
They gave him an extra minute to fucking explain the entire thing. And that's why she was like, thank you for explaining. Sassily was like, thank you for explaining the process. This is why, this
Yeah,
is the problem.
okay.
This is
fine.
the problem. It's like, this feels like a weird form of like fucking emotional blackmail, because I look at these two fucking cunts on the screen. Okay.
Yeah, okay,
And I
thank
agree
you.
with you. I agree with you that they're making this fucking smug face and it's awful and it's so fucking terrible. But that doesn't mean that just because they're awful, two wrongs don't make it right, doesn't mean that he is correct.
Look,
and
you
lying about the illegal immigration situation.
You
okay?
have made up your mind that he was lying. I have not made up my mind that he was lying. Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So
is
if
that
someone
right?
says,
like, I haven't heard enough to know if he was lying. Okay.
We've literally
I don't know
talked
that I
about this
want
before.
I don't know that.
Okay. Wait, I don't understand. You keep saying you don't know if he's lying or not. If someone says they're illegal immigrants and then you say, well, they're actually not, because you even went through it. There's this protective status net now because of the earthquake and because of the gangs. They're not illegal. They have protective status and are allowed to be here.
Yeah, but
look, they're not illegal immigrants, are they?
There is another level here. Okay. A lot of people know that there are laws on the books that they agree with and disagree with. So what they want to know is this a law that shouldn't be on the books, or is this a law that is on the books? Now, if they don't agree with the law, then they're not going to say JD Vance was lying. They're going to say, look, he's telling the truth here. That shouldn't be the law. I mean, technically they are. It is technically they are of legal status, but they shouldn't be. That's the calculation that they're going to make.
Okay, then Vance should be smart, which he's been in other parts in this debate, but this is fucking stupid. Instead of saying they're illegal, which is factually untrue, and it gets you down this stupid Sitch's law fucking conversation about the definition of illegal, he should just say like the Biden or the Kamala Harris, immigrants. Right?
Why?
Just
hold on.
Like
why
the way
must he bend to your sensibilities? Why can't he just?
It's not fucking bending to my sensibilities. It's telling the fucking truth. What the fuck are you talking about? This is like insane. Wait, this would be like saying,
God.
wait, no. This would be like saying, oh, I'm pro-life. Okay, so I'm gonna look at a state that is pro-choice and they allow abortions and say the illegal abortion laws that are taking place under Tim Walz. And you're like, what do you mean illegal? It's legal in that state. No, but I think it should be illegal. Well, just because you think it should be illegal doesn't mean it fucking is illegal.
Look, we got to dial it down a bit. You understand the argument that I'm making?
It's like the argument you're making is fucking retarded. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Obviously, there are laws, right? It's illegal to smoke marijuana, right?
Yes.
Other people think, well, I don't look at people who smoke weed as criminals. I don't think it should be illegal, right? So they make some sort of calculation. Now, I understand technically, it's a lie, right? But people want to make this calculation for themselves. And the problem that I have here is they're going to have a back and forth on the actual details of the law that allow people to make that calculation and determine if they think, well, JD Vance is technically lying, but you know, I don't think it's that bad because I don't think there should be a law. And they're literally cutting it off. Like, that's the argument I'm making.
Okay.
And you look, you seem to be standing fast on technically JD Vance is a liar. And it's more like, it's more complicated than that. It's very complicated.
Wait a minute. Okay. When Kamala Harris talks about Trump's tariffs and she says Trump's tax, Trump's taxes, right? Trump's going to tax the country or whatever. And you say, okay, that's like a good way of framing the thing, right? You're associating it with Trump. You're saying, oh, he's going to do this thing. Trump's going to do this thing, or the Trump abortion laws, right? And you say, okay, is that like technically like honest? I don't know. It's in sort of like this weird gray area. Okay. And I said, if JD Vance was smart to avoid this entire fucking Sitch's Law stupid fucking conversation about the definition of illegal, where he's fucking technically wrong, okay, instead of doing that, he should just try to associate it with Kamala Harris or Biden and say the Biden, Haitian immigrants, or we shouldn't probably should say Haitian, we should say the Biden immigrants or the Kamala immigrants, or use some phraseology to talk to, instead of calling them illegal, to just say like, they're allowed under the Biden-Kamala Harris administration. That's a smarter way to frame it. It dodges this whole fucking issue about people trying to fact check you about it one way or the other. And it directly associates it with Biden or Harris, which is what they're trying to fucking do in the first place. So when I say that, don't tell me, well, why does he have to bend to my sensibilities? That's the smart fucking play. Okay, it's not bending to my sensibilities.
Well, it's a smart play in your estimation, though. I mean, you got to at least admit that.
Yeah, it is,
like
because then you don't get bogged, because then you don't get fact checked and look like a fucking retard and get clipped by Kamala Harris saying, well, you weren't supposed to fact check me.
Well, look, he only got clipped because he worded it that way. Like, if he didn't word it that way, he wouldn't. Look, if he didn't word it that way, like, he may have come out on top in this exchange. Who knows?
Well, I didn't.
Well, it wouldn't have got clipped, definitely, because this exchange never really happened. So, but look, I don't. I mean, you're saying that is a good move. That is the move that would win you over, right?
No, I'm saying that's the move that would win more people over and wouldn't be clippable to make them look like a fucking idiot.
Okay.
Which is the goal in these debates, is to not look like a fucking idiot and get clipped.
Okay. I agree with you.
Okay.
Well, look, the goal for me as a voter is to understand the dynamics of the situation. As a voter, I was prevented from understanding that. So
in the next part, they talk about the deficits. They both gave pretty good answers on the budget stuff. They talked about housing, drug fairness, middle class tax cuts. Now, I forgot. I was going to fact check this. I was curious. I didn't know if I heard them right. They claim that Kamala's plan was going to increase the deficit by 1.2 trillion and that Trump's plan was going to increase it by 5 trillion, which I don't know how the fuck that happens. But then in that answer, Vance did give a good answer in that he said some of what Kamala promises sounds pretty good, but she's been VP for 4 years and all she's done is drive up the cost of food and housing and open the border. And that's kind of what the Trump campaign needs to do, is they need to keep saying, all the problems you have right now are Kamala Harris's fault, Kamala Harris's fault, Kamala Harris's fault.
okay.
Let's see. Oh, and then there's this kind of interesting exchange later that kind of gets into some of the heart of the issue between the Republicans and the Democrats. And it's this idea of trusting the experts. I don't know if you caught this part. The experts
I did. I watched
versus
the whole
common
debate.
sense.
Yeah. This was great. This was a great exchange.
Those same experts for 40 years.
So the background is Walz is basically like, you need to trust the experts in order to talk about budget stuff. You need to talk about, border stuff. And the Trump campaign, they don't trust the experts on housing. They don't trust the experts on national security. They don't trust the scientists, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is JD Vance's response to all that.
Bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator,
This kind of shows this widening gap between institutions and essentially where Trump and the Republican Party is at the moment, which, you know, I know our institutions have lots of problems, obviously, at the moment, but we do need to, the institutions need to be recaptured by actual science, by actual logic. And I don't like the idea of just like this, we can throw away our expertise for the sake of common sense. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Republicans have their own set of experts. So it's kind of weird to frame it as no expertise. I do think Vance obviously saying that, you know, they listened to their experts and their experts were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to listen to common sense. We're going to do what you would do is good politics. But I don't actually think that's what anyone would do.
You get into this problem where if you can't trust any form of expertise, because you're right, there's like a left-wing experts and there's right-wing experts.
Yeah, of course. They'll trot out their own economists and all that kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Right. And normally that's what they do. They say, well, our experts say this. And it's like, well, our experts say that. And, you know, that's fine. And I don't like the concept of like, just throw all the experts away and listen to, quote, common sense. Because when you say, well, what does common sense mean? It's like, well, that's whatever the leader says is common sense. And if that's the case, you get into this problem of, well, there's no sense-making apparatus outside of whatever the pundit says, whatever the politician says. And I think that's kind of a dangerous area to sort of wade into.
Yeah, obviously your common sense can be completely incorrect. I just think he's doing it for political reasons. I don't think he's
you're
saying,
100%
look, we
correct.
should abandon all experts. Like,
No,
that
he's-
would be
yes.
ridiculous.
Well, it's
But
funny.
he didn't even frame it that way. I mean, he just said, look, your experts got it wrong.
Well, he just said, well, because he didn't say your experts, he just said experts.
Right. But
Versus
look,
common
it's
sense.
implied that he means your experts. You listen to the experts that you listen to. And they got it wrong.
Maybe. Because
Yeah.
when Vance was talking about, you know, there's like this plan to like use federal land to build houses, which doesn't
Mhm.
really make sense because there's like the federal land only exists in specific locations. And very often it's like large swaths of wilderness where no one's living. So I don't know how building houses out there is really going to be helpful. And when Vance kind of responds to that point, at least to me, my perception is like he knows it's just a stupid fucking thing that Trump said, but he still has to defend it because Trump said it. So he just kind of like says something very quickly and then moves on because he knows it's like a dumb point to make.
Even Walz's response, because he says, look, if you got cancer or some kind of disease, you're going to listen to this expert over here. And
You're gonna listen to your
thinking,
doctor over Donald Trump. Yeah.
Yeah, but common sense says get a fucking second opinion. Doctors are crooks. Don't listen to your doctor. What the hell?
Yeah, but see, that
that's
would have
common
been
sense, right?
right. But see, that would have been a much better way for Vance to frame it, to say common sense says you need to, you know, not just listen to the expert that tells you why you want to hear. You have to listen to, you know, got to get a second opinion. And Donald Trump gets a
Exactly.
second opinion. Yeah, but he should have said something like that instead.
That
But
would have
he
been great.
specific-
Yeah.
Right, but he didn't. He
Well,
said
put me
common
in there,
sense.
coach. I'm ready.
It kind of reminded me of like our conversation with Carl like years ago, where Carl was talking about how like I don't trust scientists, but I trust engineers. It like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
kind of it kind of feels like that. level of
Scientists
vibe.
are, engineers aren't. Look, same
I know.
epistemology, right?
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So, okay. So then now we can move on to, this is Tim Walz's biggest fuck up of the night here. This is, they asked Tim Walz the Hong Kong question, the dreaded Hong Kong question. And he gives the worst fucking answer ever on the planet.
We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot, I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
That was great. Not technically not lying.
That was the fucking word salad. Like, oh my God, just throw everything at the question. Hope they forget by the time I get to the end of this answer.
Technically not a liar.
There you go. Well, they ask him, they say, okay, follow up. Can you answer the fucking question?
Yeah.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
Oof.
Why didn't he just, but here's the, he should have just said, oh yeah, I just misspoke. I got there in the summer afterwards. That's the end of the answer. It's like literally one sentence. You don't need to say anything else. You don't need to give this fucking long rambling answer like, the people know who I am.
Yeah. Well, he's got to run out the 2 minutes. Otherwise they're going to say, look, you have 1 minute and 90 seconds left.
You say, listen, I'm efficient. When I make a mistake, I'll say it. I'm efficient.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nobody's clipping this out though, right? This isn't making the rounds. This isn't all over. I mean, it's probably all over Fox News, but it's not over mainstream media.
Maybe because it's like, and maybe this is actually the technique here. It's not clippable because it's just this long rambling answer. I mean, I guess you can clip it, but
the
it's not
last
so...
part is totally clippable right here.
The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
Yeah, because he fucked up when he's like,
that's terrible.
Like if he just said, oh, if he just said very calmly, like, oh yeah, I just made a mistake because I got there the summer, but I wasn't there at the time. And just said it very confidently and calmly, it wouldn't really be a clippable thing.
Oh, yeah, he could have done a much better answer, but he's like, anyway, his
they're clipping,
expression gives him away.
It does. And they're clipping him saying that he's like a lunkhead, which is, that was like a retarded thing to say.
Oh yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm a lunkhead. It's like, oh,
I'm a knucklehead.
I'm a knucklehead. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I was in
So I was in.
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
Oof. Terrible, terrible answer.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead to the abortion. Now, this is kind of like a long segment, but I do think it's worth sort of listening to.
Versus Wade was overturned. You signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind.
So it's interesting because they actually ask a very pointed question about the, abortion in 9 months. And he does lie about it. He does says, well, that's not what the bill says. And it's like, okay, I mean, I guess that's not what the bill doesn't say abort the child in 9 months, but it does give the ability to do it. And it is interesting that I think he basically gets away with this lie in terms of the answer, but then he does give, I think, a good political answer in this conversation.
Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about health care. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in health care for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies.
So wait, before he gets in this answer, so they ask Walz this difficult question, and he just says that's not what the bill says, which is one of those things that's like technically true, but it's a lie. But then he pivots and he tells these sort of visceral stories of women who had, horrible situations, and it's, puts this like really clear image in your mind. So it's a very good answer in terms of, pushing the pro-choice position, which is what he wants to push. So that was like one of Tim Walz's best answers and best pivots away from a difficult question. And then
Yeah, I agree.
And then it comes to Vance here. And it's weird because he gives, I think, the worst answer he gives for anything in the entire night. I literally don't understand what he's even trying to do with this answer. It is a fucking terrible answer.
Well, he's trying to hit the compassionate conservative bell again. And also, I think there is a shelf life on this attack that Democrats want to let women abort babies in their ninth trimester. Like, I understand the attack, and it does get people's hackles up, but ultimately, I think it's a losing attack. I think Republicans are going to lose on this abortion fight, and I think that this answer kind of sees the writing on the wall. This is kind of the answer for the 2024 campaign setup for JD Vance, because he's made some 2028 rather. Yeah, he's made a lot of incendiary statements around abortion that if he's going to run in 2028, he has to like walk back. Look, Trump has openly said that the Republican Party needs to adjust its thinking on abortion, otherwise they're never going to be able to win another election. So
Right.
I don't think the base has really got the message, but a bunch of people with that meme in their head about, well, if we allow abortion, 90% of abortions are going to be these late term abortions where women just decide on a whim that they're going to abort their kid. That's so few situations, and mostly it's for health reasons, that I don't think people will have the stomach for letting this go on. And more of these situations where the woman ends up dying are going to become prominent. It's such a losing battle for Republicans that I actually think it's smart for JD Vance not to hit that bell. Like, you're basically saying he should hit that Democrats want to abort their kids at the 9th month argument. You're saying he should hit that argument.
Yeah, because I agree with you, there's a shelf life, but I think that shelf life exists in that if you don't have a bunch of stories coming out of states like,
There's
like
going
the
to be
state
more
that,
and more.
that
Yeah.
Tim Walz is the governor of, where you have a bunch of, babies that are aborted in the 9th month or something. Like, if those stories keep coming out, then there is no shelf life. Then that attack has legs and will continue. But if the years come and go and you don't really get, you get maybe like one story, or you don't get any stories, then that attack's not going to be effective going forward.
Yeah.
But it's still, I think it's early enough in the game that it's still more of like a threat. It's a threat of the unknown. And so I think it's still an effective attack to be like, to point out Tim Walz didn't answer the question, right? Tim Walz, like the Hong Kong thing, Tim Walz didn't answer the question. He just completely dodged and pivoted here. The fact that he signed in a law that allows women to get an abortion in the 8th month, or the 8th and 9th month.
The reality of the bill, though, is that they don't want there to be any friction between doctors who may need to do some sort of procedure for health reasons because they're afraid or uncertain of the law, right?
Right.
That's why they leave it open-ended. I think that's a pretty pragmatic reason to leave it open-ended, though.
I mean, I'm not judging whether the law is a good law or not, because I understand that's the point of it. I'm just saying, from JD Vance's perspective, as someone who's rabidly pro-life and is trying to win this election, and you're correct, the abortion, the majority of the country is not on the Republican side on the abortion issue. So that's why I'm saying the only thing, like the point where I think the Republicans can gain ground on the abortion issue is that most people are in favor of allowing abortion with time constraints. Okay. And so the left has done a very good job of just being like, Republicans want to control your body. They don't want you to get an abortion, period, which most people are not in favor of. But most people are also in favor of allowing abortions completely unrestricted into the 7th, 8th, 9th month. And that's where the Republicans should be doing what the Democrats are doing, is attack the Democrats from that position. You literally have Tim Walz as governor of a state that has a law that allows that. And even if there's a good reason for it, I still think JD Vance would gain political points for attacking it and saying, look, Tim Walz didn't answer the question. He's literally in a state. He signed a bill that allows abortion up until the moment of birth.
Look, I completely agree with you that it is a politically effective attack. Now, I do think the Republicans and the smart Republicans are kind of in a strategic retreat frame of mind on abortion. So I think his answer kind of tips his hand towards a strategic
Like looking ahead to
retreat.
2028.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
The strategic retreat framing. Because look, we can play this out, right? Obviously, you could write a bill that cuts abortion off at a certain date, right?
Mhm.
Let's go 20 weeks just for the sake of argument.
Right.
But you always want exceptions, right? If it's between the baby or the life of the mother in the 8th month, like a lot of people are going to say life of the mother, right?
Yeah, of course.
So as soon as you put those exceptions in there, the pro-life people are going to come in and say, well, some woman is going to have some mental issue. She's going to say, oh, I can't have this baby because of my mental issue. And like, it's the life of the mother, but really they're aborting the baby at the 8th month. Right. So then the exceptions kind of need to be laid out in the law perfectly. Otherwise the doctors are like, I don't want to do it. Right.
Right.
So the pragmatic thing to do is just leave it up to the doctor, leave it up to the woman. Like there are going to be cases like that happen, but hopefully they're few, right? Because the other unthinkable cases are where the doctor is like, well, there's an exception, but look, it's unclear whether or not this meets that exception. So I'm going to be safe and not do it, right? Those cases where the woman loses her life are going to be more prominent. So it's a tricky line, but I don't think it's a good political battle to have, because I feel like you're kind of losing just talking about this. I think both parties are kind of, and this is a good thing for the American people, is like this is a settled thing in Europe and other places where they don't fight over abortion anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've come to a societal consensus.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. It's a losing issue for the Republicans to talk about. But the problem is that there's still a huge chunk of the Republican base that are diehard pro-life, and they're never going to let that issue go. Like,
yes,
that's
but
been
look,
bred
this
into the
goes in-
party for 50 years.
This goes exactly into what I'm saying about JD Vance's response, right? If JD Vance comes in and completely caters to those people, jacks them up, so they're all day on social media talking about this issue and how Democrats are baby killers. Like that's not going to be a good electorate for him to deal with in 2028. He's turning the ship around here. Tactical retreat.
I don't know, because like his answer is very weird. His answer, which I'll play in a second, is essentially, it's like he says that the Republicans need to earn back people's trust on abortion,
Right.
which is unclear as to what that even means or entails exactly.
Okay.
So
A federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump.
this is the worst fucking answer I've ever heard. So he says, I personally know a woman who thought if she didn't get an abortion, her life would be destroyed. Anyway, that's why I'm pro-life. And you're like, it's just what? What the fuck?
He hasn't
What is the
mentioned
thought?
anything about being pro-life or pro-choice here.
Well, we all know he's pro-life. Everyone going into this knows that he's pro-life. The question was, you were in favor of a national abortion ban.
Right. Look, he's
So why would you
saying
tell that story?
Because
So
he's
weird.
saying he empathizes with the position, the pro-choice position. He's literally saying, look, I empathize with the pro-choice position.
You don't tell what it's weird because when he first started answering, I thought the direction he was going to go was he was saying, you know, I grew up in a working class environment. I knew a lot of women that got abortions because they felt they couldn't afford it. ... That's why I believe as a pro-life candidate, that we need to give people the ability to raise children and access, healthcare for children, well-being, childcare for children. Like I thought he was going to go into this whole spiel about, we need affordable housing, we need like good jobs. I thought he was going to go this whole thing about like we need to improve the economic situation for the working class so that people don't feel like, they have to get abortions. Like I would be like, okay, that's a good answer. But he doesn't do that. He tells this literal story about a woman whose life would have been destroyed if she didn't have an abortion, and then says we need to make Americans trust us again. It's like, I don't know what does that fucking mean?
It means that he empathizes and understands the pro-choice position.
Yeah, but what does it mean in terms of like what policy is he going to be in favor of?
It means that the realities of the situation are not invisible to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it means. Look, and it's smart to keep it nebulous. It is smart. It's good politics. Look, you disagree. You think this is a terrible answer, and that this is. So let me ask you what makes it a terrible answer? Because it doesn't speak directly to the base. Like you think Democrats are going to think he's lying. What makes you think it's a terrible answer?
Well, first of all, when he says, the question is, you are in favor of a national abortion ban. And so people understand based on the question, obviously understand based on Republican Party's policies and Vance's policies, positions overall, that this is a person who is pro-life, that they are against abortion. And
well, look, answering that question is a mistake. I hope you agree.
Well, but he has to answer the question. It's asked of him. He has to say something, right? He can't just stand there silently for 2 minutes. He has to say something.
No, yeah, he has to say something. But right. Like answering that question directly, he can't do. Like you. Oh no,
I agree with you. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
He should not answer the national.
He can't go. Yes, I'm in favor of a national abortion ban.
Yes,
right?
I agree. 100%.
Career suicide. Right.
That'd be very stupid. Yes.
He can't he can't say no. I am not in favor of a national abortion ban. Right. That would be career suicide. Right. So he's got to wiggle out of this. Right. So we're both in agreement there. But you were saying that the way he wiggled out of it is bad, which I don't think it is, because look, he's trying to appeal to moderate voters who are scared to death that the Republicans are going to get in power and they're going to do a national abortion ban, right? Mm-hmm. He's got to speak to those people without saying directly, nah, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to do a national abortion ban. So he gives this story about a woman that look, I took it as, it's probably a good thing this woman got an abortion. How did you take it?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's a bad answer, because that's exactly how I took it. That he's literally a pro-life candidate telling a story about a woman whose life was saved by getting an abortion.
Yeah, because he's communicating to moderate voters, hey, look, I'm not your guy. I'm not gonna do this nationwide abortion.
I see.
ban.
Okay, yeah, I understand. You're saying that essentially,
but he's not coming right out and saying it.
I understand. Yeah. What you're saying is that he's basically trying to do this weird maneuver to just the moderates, where he says, I understand.
Why
exactly
is it weird? Why is it not smart?
Well, I guess to me, it's so obviously transparent that it's not smart.
So
now, I don't know, maybe
to you, it comes off as pandering then, is what you're saying.
Well, it comes off as like, number one, I'm assuming JD Vance did not just change his position and suddenly approach us candidate. Right. No. And I guess if you're not making that assumption coming into it, then maybe it's a good answer, because it's completely unclear what the fuck he's saying. And it's also vague enough that you could be like, oh, maybe he's not so hard on abortion.
Well, it fits my worldview. Like my theory is, and Donald Trump has said this explicitly many times. He literally tweeted out.
Yeah, I understand.
During this exchange in all caps and all bold, no, I'm not going to sign an abortion ban. The Democrats are lying to you. He said Republicans need to get it together, because the abortion politics is not a winning strategy going forward. And look, we lost this one. Basically, like I said, strategic retreat. How do we back away from this issue, make other issues more important, and stop catering to this hostile demographic that we're never going to be able to please,
Yeah, but
the anti-abortion people.
the way that I take the implication when he says, I'm assuming that he didn't suddenly become pro-choice. So the implication to me when he says we need to make Americans trust Republicans again on the abortion issue, what he's saying without saying it is that we as Republicans need to do better messaging to actually convince people that abortion is immoral.
Look, that's the way you heard it?
That's how I'm interpreting the statement. Yes.
The statement, we need to grow trust with the American people, because you could,
Right.
and this is why these nebulous statements are such good politics, because everybody reads into them whatever they want.
However they want to see it.
Yeah.
Right.
But you could easily read that as, throwing Roe v. Wade out kind of threw the country into chaos and caused people not to trust the Republican Party, and we need to fix that.
Well, you're correct in terms of, well, we'll see. We'll listen to the whole thing here. Because you could be correct in terms of maybe it's actually a good answer because it's so fucking nebulous that if you're not coming into this with the preconception that this is a very pro-life candidate, you could be essentially tricked into thinking, oh, maybe he's pretty moderate on the abortion issue.
Right.
Which is what you're saying is the goal here.
Do you think
that could
would do
work.
do you think JD Vance would do a bait and switch and sign like a national abortion ban?
Well, let's say if it's 2028 and JD Vance is running for president, yeah, 100%. He would try to get him. I mean, he's on record in the past and they even read the quote to him that he thought it was horrific that there's no national abortion ban, already. Like I'm assuming he wasn't lying. I mean, maybe he was lying when he said that. Maybe that was a lie, but I'm assuming he's just vehemently pro-life and that's his real position.
So the woman that he brought up that he says he knows personally,
mm-hmm.
Do you think that's a real person, or you think he just made it up?
I'm assuming it's a real person because I have no fucking clue why he would have made it up, because it doesn't.
Okay.
So I'm saying
So assuming that
the
is a
reason
real
I'm saying it's a
person.
bad answer is because it seems like he's essentially making the Democrats' argument for them. He's saying, I know a woman who said her life would be ruined by abortion.
I get
like,
that.
why is the Republican making this argument?
Look, that plays into the strategic retreat. The Democrats won. Okay, you don't want to say, oh my God, the Democrats won, I'm such a fucking loser. Right. This is why it's a strategic retreat. Okay. So so maybe the woman's phony, maybe she's not, but look, let's say she is real. So he's this person that he brought up that he says he's friends with, he's going to sign a national abortion ban and just be like, fuck you, bitch. Fuck you. Fuck you. Yes. You should have had that kid, you fucker.
Well, no.
You think he's going to do that?
Well, no, I think he's going to think every time you have an abortion, you're killing an innocent baby, and I'm protecting the lives of the millions of Americans that are killed every year or whatever. That's the thought process, obviously.
What is this? I mean, this is like such a crazy, American Psycho type situation. Like, what is the girl like his ex-girlfriend and the baby?
I don't know.
That's why
I don't know. That's why I said it was so weird for him to bring it up. It's such a bad answer. I was like, why would you bring up this fucking thing? Why would you bring up this story?
You shouldn't have killed my baby.
Wait. So let's listen to. Let's listen to the full
I
answer
think
here.
I think the Republicans are going to go in this direction from here on out. I think they're doing all kinds of polling. I think the throwing Roe v. Wade into chaos turned out bad for them politically. Like, it may cost them this election, definitely. So.
I mean, we both said that when that ruling came down.
Of course we did. Of course we did. Yeah,
I know. So I agree with you 100%, but I don't know. If Donald Trump can't pivot the Republican Party away from abortion, I don't know if anyone can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think JD Vance can pivot I don't think he personally is going to pivot away from abortion, because I'm assuming he's being honest when he says he's pro-life, and I can't imagine him having the ability to pivot the Republican Party away from abortion in 2028. I think this is going to be a continual issue. I don't think it's going to go away, and I'm not sure they can retreat from it, but I guess we'll find out.
Hey, Shu, you can come on if you want anytime. Just send me a DM. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, so I see you in the chat. It's like, Shu says, y'all, which I love the y'alls, by the way. I lived in New Orleans for a while, so I got good at saying y'all. Y'all don't understand Vance's ideology, lol. I mean, so I think Sitch and I are in conflict over Vance's ideology. I mean, Sitch is leaning more towards Vance is going to do like a bait and switch. And I'm thinking Vance is a smart politician where he may personally be against abortion, but he realizes that the Republican Party can't win elections.
I don't think he's going to do a bait and switch. That's not my, I'm saying when he says we need to get the American people to trust the Republicans on abortion again, I interpret that as saying we need to convince Americans that abortion is wrong. That's not a bait and switch. It's just he's being vague in how he words it exactly.
Right. That's, yeah, I obviously am not sure. And it's nebulous enough that it could be either way. So I have no faith that that's what he actually means, but.
Party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much.
See, this is all like,
he's arguing against life at conception right there.
No. But see, everything he's saying now, if he just cut out that little story about the person he knows who said that their life was saved by an abortion, this answer would have made sense. He just completely ruined it by adding that little story in the middle.
Sitch, I'm confused here because you are pro-choice, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so am I. I'm totally pro-choice. So
I'm looking at this through the I'm looking at this entire debate and I'm looking at this entire political campaign cycle as not what is PSA Sitch's personal preference, but in terms of what do I think the candidates need to do to be effective? Both the Democrats and Republicans need to do to be effective at their messaging. And I'm saying that this is an ineffective message for JD Vance and the Republicans. I'm not saying what I personally want. Obviously, I'm pro-choice.
I'm only putting the personal on top of the argument that I already made. I think the country, the vast majority of people are pro-choice with limitations. That's the position that is going to win elections, right?
Yes. Yeah.
He is literally catering to the position that is going to win elections, which is your position, which is my position, right? Neither of us are in favor of some of the insane things. You know, a woman has some mental breakdown and decides she wants to have an abortion in the 9th month. Neither one of us are going to be in favor of that. You start drilling into the technicalities of how you service that sort of situation versus a life of the mother type situation, which is legitimate, right?
Right.
So I just he speaks directly to that position.
No. Okay. So there's conflict in these elections because very often there's a situation where the base of the party, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, have a much more extreme position than the majority of the country overall. And so candidates have this issue where when they're running in the general election, they have to try to weave some kind of magic answer that won't piss off the extreme members of their base whose support they need, but will also, entice the moderates to join them. And so that's why I'm saying the answer that I think he should have wove, which he kind of did, but then ruined it with that personal story, is he answers a question by saying, I knew a lot of people who got abortions for economic reasons, and we're going to make economic conditions improve for everyone. Because then he's not really answering the question specifically about the time limitations. He's kind of dodging all that, but still giving a pro-life.
That doesn't answer the question, though.
You're right. He can't answer the question.
No. It does. No, the situation was she was in an abusive situation.
No. I'm saying he shouldn't even brought that. No, I'm saying he shouldn't have brought that story up. That was retarded for him to even say that.
I 1000% disagree because I do think that he is speaking to moderate, independent voters going, it's okay to vote for us. We're not going to like
Maybe,
do a sneak
maybe.
attack on you on
Right.
abortion. We're not going to do a bait and switch here. And when he says that we have to regain the trust of the American people, what he's saying is the American people believe that we Republicans are going to do a bait and switch on them, because that's kind of what happened with Roe v. Wade. It kind of just came
Right.
out of nowhere, bolt out of the blue. Smack. This is your new reality, right? And he's saying, look, that's not a good way to manage the country, and we need to let people know. And look, he's doing the cats on the roof thing, right? You don't, when you are house sitting and the person you're house sitting for, their cat dies on you, you don't say, oh, your cat's dead, right? You say, oh, I can't find the cat. I think I heard it on the roof, right?
Right. I understand.
And then I think I heard it outside. Look, I think I saw it, right?
You're
But
trying to soften them up
you
before you
ease
deliver
into it. You
the blow.
ease
Right.
into it.
Yeah,
So you
I
don't
gotcha.
come out and say,
Right.
hell no, I'm not going to sign an abortion ban. That's fucking crazy. We're never going to win another election if that happens again. No, you
Right.
tell a compelling story about a friend of yours who had an abortion and it wasn't so bad. It actually improved the quality of her life.
So I guess we have not, we're not going to know the answer to this, that you're essentially saying he's not trying to convince the moderates. He's trying to convince his base that maybe abortion isn't so bad. I don't think that's what he means, but I guess it's vague enough that it's up to interpretation. And maybe you're right. Maybe that vagueness is actually a genius move, because it allows the base to interpret it however they want, and it allows the, moderates to interpret however they want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's why I do think this is like very smart. That's why I think, look, this guy may be the president when the climax turning ends. This could be our Lincoln character here. It's much to your chagrin, but
Go back and listen to what he was saying. He was talking about his mom. No, he wasn't. Wait, what?
no, he talked about a friend and said his mom, I don't think his mom is alive anymore.
About it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree.
And will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree.
Look, even the question.
Wait, hold on. Let me just listen to it.
No, but even the question shows that the American people don't trust them. Like they think they're going to put some registry together and keep
I understand. Yes.
pregnant women under.
With everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who...
So, first of all, he didn't say my mom, but if he is referring to his mom, he's not referring to himself. He's referring to the fact that his mom, whoever he's talking about, did get the abortion. So,
No.
Incorrect.
Look, he's obviously talking about a friend. He says, look, in the community, this happened with lots of women. And one of the women that I was actually close friends with.
Yes. Said, if I hadn't got the abortion, my life would have been destroyed. Yeah. So they got the abortion. He's not saying, oh, I knew someone that said that they didn't that they want an abortion, but they didn't. And now I'm here. Right. Like that would have been, I would have understood it then. That would have been like, oh, a very pro-life kind of position to have.
Look, and he's not making an economic situation either. It's something that could happen to anybody in any economic situation, right? The guy is abusive. He's a woman beater.
Right.
To protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for...
See, even the fertility treatments, that's basically saying, look, I don't believe in life at conception.
The IVF thing.
I just don't. Yeah. You can't, look, you don't... Has he taken a position on life at conception? Like, you can't be for IVF if you believe in life at conception. It's a horrifying position. So.
Well, if his position was that he wanted. I believe his position was something like, it is abhorrent that I live in a country that doesn't have a national abortion ban.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean, it's a very strong position. So
sure. Yeah. Sounds like he's moderated his position a bit. So.
For young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
This is exactly how prohibition was overturned too. Like all the individual states made their laws. Pretty soon all those laws zeroed in on a consensus, and then the federal government would change the law because all the other states already agreed. So that's probably the path abortion will take.
Like, well, so, I mean, that's the Alabama path that like marijuana is taking right now.
Yeah,
all the
exactly.
States are going to essentially make it legal, and the federal law is going to have to make it legal.
So all the Alabama people are going to come out with these really staunch anti-abortion laws, and then they're going to have more and more troubles getting elected, and they're going to realize, oh my God, okay, we're totally out of step with our population.
Well, this might open a whole can of worms here, but doesn't it kind of destroy the entire philosophical argument of the pro-life side if the pro-life position is life begins at conception? Well, not everyone, but like if that's the position that anyone has, life begins at conception. If that's your philosophical position, you can't advocate that states are the ones that should make the decision on abortion. Those are incompatible. That doesn't make any sense. If you believe it's murder, it's murder. The state should not be allowing it to go. This is not a question of like federalism, and states' rights. It's a question of life and death. And so I think that's part of maybe why the Republicans have had this kind of trouble with the abortion argument, is that the philosophy undermining the position doesn't match the rhetoric of let the states decide.
Well, look, when they came up with life begins at conception, they had no idea there was going to be this thing called IVF. They had no idea that
I'm not even
talking
about
future technology that was going to exist.
Right. I'm not even talking about IVF. I'm just literally just talking about abortion.
Well, yeah, and I know, but I'm bringing up the fact that they started a meme, life begins at conception, and that became the root of their philosophy, right? But then all of a sudden, this technology comes into play that meme kind of hurts the ability to use that technology.
Right.
This is why people are against IVF.
Would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states.
Yeah, I don't agree with you. I don't think Vance should just let Tim Walz skate by saying Donald Trump lied. I think that's a big mistake. But
there's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, Why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level.
Now, I do think that, even though it's dishonest, I do think it's a good amount of political rhetoric where you say, I'm not in favor of a ban. I was in favor of limitations. So
That's
like,
good.
okay. It's the same thing, but okay.
Level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships, and we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that, and that's what real leadership is.
Governor,
I just keep wondering what internal poll did they see where they asked, do you trust the Republicans on abortion? And they were like, no. They said no, 98%.
His answer lines up exactly with my interpretation of what he means when he says they have to trust Republicans. Because he says they need to trust Republicans, and then he says, you know, we need to provide childcare. He means trust Republicans would allow people to take care of babies, not trust Republicans won't take away your abortion rights.
Right. Okay.
Now, I think he's framing it very bizarrely where he says, you know, I like the constituents of my own state disagreed with me on abortion, which, I mean, I guess it's an honest way of framing it. I don't know if it's a politically effective way of framing it. But though, and there's one more thing that's kind of interesting about this answer is that when you hear people talk about how having a child too early or having a child when you're a single mother destroys your life, who is it that you hear that says that very often?
I don't know. What do you make your point?
Ben Shapiro. The conservative, like I almost hear it like predominantly from people on the right who talk about how having a single, being a single mother destroys your life, destroys your child's life, and all this other stuff. So it's kind of, which is true, but then it kind of makes it more difficult to basically advocate for the position that he's advocating for, where he's saying essentially, well, we need to earn people's trust back. It's like, okay, but the Republicans are the ones that are pointing out that having a baby early and out of wedlock is going to be so devastating to you.
Well, they're advocating for abstinence, so they're saying, look,
right.
You shouldn't be having sex at all. So
I know, but that's such a not feasible way of handling the situation, right?
Right, that's their solution, though.
Right.
I agree, it's completely not feasible, but I mean, Ben Shapiro would just say, yes, you shouldn't have had sex.
Right. Okay, so let's jump ahead to January 6th.
We're united behind a basic American industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
So I think he gave a good visual answer. He talks about the Capitol. He talks about people going in Minnesota and his kid. And he has this, I think the reason I think he really sold it is at the end when he has that sort of line that democracy is bigger than an election and that we need to shake hands at the end of it. I think that's like a really good way to frame the conversation and to frame it. I'm kind of surprised that, you know, he opened himself up for a line of attack where he talks about Donald Trump throwing people in jail. And I was kind of surprised that Vance didn't bring up the lawfare, right? Isn't that that's the kind of expected counter to say, you know, how, you know, it's rich coming from you that you talk about throwing people in jail because, you know, you want to throw Donald Trump in jail. And I was very surprised that that was not the retort to this, which I thought was a pretty effective answer from Walz.
Yeah, that would be a good comeback. Definitely.
Okay. Let me go to right here.
Vance has to know he's weak on January 6th. Like,
Oh yeah,
like
definitely.
Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance, I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
Has she? It's a damning non-answer for you to.
I think that was, see, that's the mistake, is because I thought overall JD Vance did so much better, but then that's the clip. That's the clip that you're going to see everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just that. And it's going to look devastating for Vance and Trump. Is his inability to answer that question.
Look, if Trump loses, I think January 6th is probably the reason. So.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Now I don't.
It's hard to persuade those moderate voters when you did a fucking January 6th.
I don't have any clue as to what would be the smarter way for Vance to answer that question. Maybe there is no way to answer that question.
Look, it's a horrible. There's no good way to answer it. I just obviously there are tons of people who believe the election was stolen and that Donald Trump legitimately won. I mean, there is the Vivek response where, yes, he lost the election, but there was a lot of other things that went on, suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop, that he would have won if those shenanigans hadn't taken place. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can take this question, but I don't see any of those ways being super persuasive with moderate voters who just, you know, they want someone who's going to take one for the team if this kind of situation happens. And obviously Donald Trump is not one of those people. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But also I think there could be some legal issues with if there's an acknowledgement of him losing, even if he says like, why like the Vivek answer. I don't know if he can give the Vivek answer without opening himself up for some legal problems. So
Vance can't give that anscer, or Trump?
Well, Trump
can't.
can't.
Give that answer?
Trump
oh,
can't.
yeah,
but
because of the. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Right. So,
Because of
and
the
Vance,
legal jeopardy they put him in.
right. And so Vance wouldn't want to potentially open up that can of worms for Trump. So that's why I can't answer that.
Right. That's another great reason why this is just a question he can't answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the clip probably everyone shows. The other thing was Tim Walz said that you can't shout fire in a crowded theater, which is like a common meme, but is untrue. You
Right.
can't. That is not a justification for stifling free speech. But I don't know how. I think most people think that meme is true, so I'm not sure it's going to be like a big thing against Tim Walz for saying that. I don't think anyone's going to really care. So overall, I guess, as I said, I think JD Vance did a lot better overall. I'd say had won overall, but that Walz was able to generate, and the hosts were able to generate these clippable moments that are going to make Vance look bad. And a lot of people who probably won't see the debate, they'll just see the clips, will interpret that.
Yeah. I don't think it'll have a big effect on the election.
No,
I'd be
I don't
curious
think
to
the
see the
VP
numbers.
stuff. Right.
I'd probably very low viewership even on this.
Well, I think you're correct in terms of the best thing, the most thing that came out of this was Vance kind of solidified his ability to run in 2028 as a nominee.
Right.
I think that's
Yeah.
probably was generated from this. So
Supposedly that's why Trump picked him to take over the MAGA movement.
mm,
A lot of MAGA people will be disappointed that he's going to take it in a completely traditional politics direction, right?
right.
How many times did Vance talk about the deep state?
No, obviously you shouldn't talk about that. So
Okay. I mean, Vivek talks about it all the time. He can't stop talking about it.
J
Anyway,
Mac,
should
our
we
circuit
read some
father.
super chats? Yeah, there we go.
J Mac, our circuit father for $20 says, gonna have to miss this one, but looking forward to the rewatch. Adam better have put on his eyeliner for this super impactful, important VP debate. The future of Republic democracy is literally and figuratively at stake.
J-Mac, you know
There you
I'm
go.
always wearing my eyeliner. How
There
dare
you
you
go.
question my eyeliner cred?
It's funny. I can see the people who either just came in or who are like rampant with TDS. This guy's like, it's clear Vance won. I don't know what Sitch and Adam are doing. When we both literally said that we thought Vance won and did better. So I don't know how sensitive you are about this. That any
Well, they
critique,
might not know. They might have come in live and they never heard
I
of
guess,
our beginning. Yeah.
any critique of Vance's performance, and you have like a little shit fit. So
A
J
lot of
Mac,
people like just come in and comment, obviously reacting to the first thing they're hearing.
right,
Like,
right,
they haven't
right.
heard the whole live stream in context. So
Well, I mean, we literally just said as summary that I thought JD Vance won. So, but that there's going to
Okay.
be these clippable moments that are going to make him look bad for people that see the clips, and there's not so much clippable moments that make Walz look bad. So, J Mac or Circuit 5, thanks so much for the 50 gifted memberships.
Yeah, welcome new members.
Right.
I hope you stick around. Sitch and I like to fight like cats and dogs sometimes.
That's true.
Keeps things interesting. We always have
Like-
great makeup sex, so it's all right. You guys don't have to worry.
Wagon for $2 says, can I just vote for Vance now? Obama level potential. Yeah, but see, you brought up something which is interesting, which is this going to cause friction between Trump and Vance? Because I felt like a lot of people watched this debate and they said, wow, I really wish Vance was the nominee and not Trump.
Oh yeah.
So
That's gotta have some friction inside Trump world. Like I don't know. Like I've read a few of these books now, and just that seems to be common knowledge that Trump likes to distance himself from people as soon as he feels they start outshining him. Like when new people come into Trump world, they just tell them straight out. They're like, here, you have to avoid let's the 48 laws of power, right? What's number one, right? Never outshine the master.
right.
Yeah. So they just tell them straight up, hey, lay low. Don't look more important than Trump, right?
Right.
JD Vance. I mean, he did not take that to heart, did he?
Well, but what is he supposed to do? I mean, he can't put on a bad performance.
Of course not.
So he's kind of in an unwinnable situation.
Yeah. Didn't we bet something that he was going to be replaced on with RFK? Look, now's
We
the
didn't
time to strike.
we didn't bet, but we said we thought it was definitely possible before Trump's debate with Kamala. We said after the debate he couldn't really do it. But Saudi for $5 says King Crocoduck said he would come on your show if you invite him. Please do for good discussion on wokeness, Zionism, and science. Yeah, I would love to talk to King Crocoduck. I listened to
Sure.
him recently on Benjamin Boyce's stream, and he was very, very good, very interesting. So I like King
I've done
Crocoduck.
live streams with him before.
Right.
He's super anti-theist, so we always like there's friction, conflict over that.
Right. Mr. Box for $5 says, I think more eyes will be on this debate because we are living through the VP as the incumbent scenario. So the next VP might matter more. I mean, that's an interesting point is like, will more people pay attention to this because the VP Kamala is literally running. So it's possible. Actually, for $5 says, Sitch has got a bit of VDS. You've been highly critical of Vance since the first second he got nominated. I call Cope. Well, I mean, you're correct. I've been highly critical of Vance because the fact that he's so enamored with Curtis Yarvin, the literal monarchist weirdo, makes me hypercritical of Vance. But I don't know how you could say I VDS. If I VDS, I wouldn't have said Vance did a surprisingly good job and won the debate overall. So I think you have to check your bias, Ostracy.
But always
Gene,
check it in a super chat. We like
there
that.
you go. Right. Gene the Penguin for $5 says, host, Governor Walz, did you steal the cookie from the cookie jar? Walz, I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. Oh, hi,
Yeah.
JD.
He definitely got caught.
Exactly. Human Flourishing for $2.69 says, Sitch on Vance and Walz. What's wrong with your face? It's true. It's true. That is accurate. Yes. David K for 25 months says, Vance did very well. This debate made me feel like things could go back to normal after Trump is gone. Vance could very well be president in 28. Yeah, I had the exact same feeling. That's why I said this debate, and I said right in the beginning, this debate, very refreshing. It's kind of a reminder of what politics was before Donald Trump was involved. And it's nice. It was nicer. Okay. It's a better place. A very good horse for $5 says Walz looks like he belongs in the box seats with Statler and Waldorf, but he isn't funny. That's very true. Surprised no one asked him about the other stories after China. That is also true. I would have liked Vance to bring that up just to see what the fuck Tim Walz would respond to that, because he's not going to be asked those questions. And some of those stories about China are pretty bizarre and are concerning to me. So. Nomad for 17 months says, this vice presidential debate is more presidential than the actual presidential debate. I do sort of miss the shit talk LMAFO. Best that it's gone now. Yeah, I mean, I understand people are like, oh, this VP debate was boring. And, it was, but listen, that's good. That's good. You want your politics to be boring, all right?
I mean, boring aesthetically, yeah, but I do think... I mean, obviously, Sitch and I had dramatically different viewings of the debate, which is interesting. I think a lot of subtext was going on. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's more interesting that way. But
Thaw for $5 says, Sitch and Adam, do you know it's fundamental to be fundamental about being fundamental in a VP debate?
Yeah, I did catch that too.
Thaw for $5 says, Vance is freaking smooth in this debate, and the contrast between the VPs makes Walz look so much worse. Yeah, it was very surprising to me, because when I went into this, I went into this thinking, okay, Tim Walz is going to be better. He seems to be better in these personal situations. Vance seems kind of awkward and weird. And it was literally the exact opposite. Vance was very smooth for most of it. Yeah, he had some very bad answers, which we talked about. But overall, he was very smooth and very good. And Walz was just not. He didn't do what he needed to do, which was essentially brand Vance and Trump as horrible, weirdo, terrible people. Like, you agree with that, right? That was,
oh, of course,
that should have been what Tim Walz's strategy was. And it's kind of weird that Tim Walz didn't do that. He just kind of played defensively the whole time.
I mean, the vibe is so important. Like a lot of people discount how important it really is.
Oh yeah,
I just
100%.
look, I just have this hunch, as China is invading the American mainland, Walls pacing around the room trying to decide what to do. It's
Right,
like,
right. That's a good point. Yeah.
yeah. So there are lots of things that can be disqualifying. I mean, you look obviously at the policy prescriptions of both sides, but then there are lots of things that just come along and you think, okay, well, this is completely disqualifying. Obviously, the best example was Biden's age. Like as soon as you realized, oh, his brain is like spaghetti, you're
Mhm.
like, policy doesn't matter anymore, right?
Right,
So
right.
that is the importance of the vibe check type thing because you think, could this guy make hard, important decisions quickly? I don't know that he can. So
Yeah, well, it makes me think that the Harris campaign doesn't have confidence in Tim Walz at all. And that's
I don't know
why,
that they have confidence in Kamala.
well, okay, I agree with that too. But I'm just saying, in terms of this limited, VP debate, that that the Harris campaign doesn't have confidence in Walz's ability to perform, because I feel like if they did, they'd say, okay, you need to kind of go out there. You already have a favorable ratings. You need to go out there and not be like screaming or aggressive towards Vance, but you need to go out there and just keep casting Trump and Vance as like extremists again and again and again. You need to make America sort of afraid of them. And it's like, you guys are like the normal people. And he didn't do that. He just seemed very defensive and, as you're saying, nervous and sort of, and very cordial, which again, I like. So I like it completely. I prefer it to be this level of cordial, but from putting my own personal preferences aside and looking at what I think makes sense for people to win the election, that should have been Tim Walz's strategy, and he didn't do it. And to me, that signals that the campaign didn't have the trust that Walz could actually deliver that. And they said, okay, you can't actually do this effectively. You just go out there and try not to fuck up.
That is a way that this did buck tradition as well, because traditionally the VP is like the bulldog. I'm going to go out
Right,
there and
right,
really
yeah.
attack, do the crazy stuff that the main candidate is too afraid to do. But
Mhm.
you're saying that they thought about doing that strategy, but then they were like, well, he's just going to fall on his face and it's going to make us look bad. So we'll just ixnay on that idea.
What's the only thing I could think of? I don't know what else would be their strategy for
No,
this
look,
debate. Yeah.
that could be the case. He didn't seem, he's not like the bulldog type, really.
No, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's not like the bulldog, but he could have just come in like in his kind of soft, plotting way. These people are extremists. Like I'm kind of surprised he didn't even really he didn't bring up the cats and dogs thing. Like he kind of vaguely did at one point, but he didn't specifically bring it up, which was kind of surprising. So
That's good, though. That makes me think that the racism stuff is testing poorly. And the Democrats are like, okay, this is worn out.
that's a good point, and that's true, and that is a positive sign for the direction of our country. So.
It is. Yeah.
Mr. Middleman for $5 says, in training all week at work, so can't listen live, but just popping to say the debate felt kind of refreshing to have some civility. Also, Walz is cringe. I agree with everything
Yeah,
you said. Yes.
totally. It was refreshing.
Ironic that my conversation with Adam was not civil. I had to kick it up a notch because the debate was very not fiery. So
I mean, it's entertaining, so I don't think people mind.
no.
Everyone,
Ryan
look,
Wolford.
you're supposed to go out and say, first of all, go directly to Reddit, go to Destiny's subreddit,
Yeah, there you
and
go.
type something up about how Sitch and Adam are breaking up and how it's completely over and
There you go.
everything is on fire. Make it good though. Make it believable. Okay.
I'm wondering because I didn't get a chance to watch Morning Joe or Rachel Maddow.
Oh, were they yelling
Coverage
at
from
each
last
other?
night.
Holy shit.
Well, no, because I'm curious. Like, I didn't watch, so I don't know if like Morning Joe and Rachel Maddow were all like, "Oh my God, Tim Walz was like the most amazing, beautiful debate
No
performance,"
way.
and not like I don't know. I'm saying I don't know, or if they acknowledge that Vance, won the debate and did much better than Walz did. I have no clue if they acknowledge that.
Yeah. I see a lot of good signs coming out of this debate. I see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Ryan Wolf for $10 says, after this debate, if Trump were to drop out, would Vance be the best option to run his place? Who would be his VP pick? If not Vance, who would be best to run against Harris with short notice? Well, I mean, obviously, well, if Trump drops out, if the after the nomination, if the president drops out or dies, it has to be, I believe, by law or by the laws of the parties, it has to be the VP. So it would be Vance no matter what. There's no one else. There's no other option at that point.
Trump
obviously-
will replace Vance before Trump drops out and gives it to Vance. Are you kidding? Your internet connection is unstable.
Can you hear me?
Oh, hell, you're back finally. How come it always?
Did I drop or did you drop?
I couldn't hear you, so the live stream couldn't
Oh.
hear you.
No, but did the live stream hear you talking?
I don't know.
Oh,
But you're back, so
okay.
thank
we're
goodness I
back.
didn't have to read a super chat.
Right. Okay. I don't know what you said, but sure.
I said, I don't remember either.
Okay, don't worry
It's
about
been so long ago. Who cares?
it. Fiery Patriot for $2 says, just got here, but Vance won for sure. True.
Oh,
Oxy
I
for
said
$10.
that Trump isn't in this for the Republican Party. Trump is in it for himself. That Trump doesn't really
Oh.
care about the future of the Republican
Right.
Party.
That is
Yeah.
100% true. Yes.
Okay. I thought you'd agree.
Yeah. Oxy for $10 says, Sitch is imparting his own moderate views on Democrats generally. In order to pass a bill Republicans would say is strong, it would be very unpopular with Democrats. I sent Adam something that might show what I mean. Well, if you look at just the polling, even I don't know what you mean by that, because if you look at the polling, Democrats overall say that they're in favor of stricter border control now. So I'm not imparting my own moderate views on the Democrats. Now, obviously, if you're correct in terms of to pass a bill that Republicans would say is, quote, strong, I'm sure that the Democrats wouldn't like that. Democrats would say that's too much, right? But that's kind of the point of living in democracy with this compromise, is that you come up with a bill that neither side loves 100%, but both sides can live with.
Right. Well, like if the Republican voter base is voting for deport, what are they saying? They're said like 15 million people are in the country that they want to deport or something. And the Democrats pass a bill that's not deporting those 15 million people. They're going to say, "Oh, well, that's a loss. We don't want that."
Right, but you're never gonna get the Democrats on board with that ever. So
I know.
You can either have a
course
situation
not.
where you allow people, like the border never gets fixed because the Republicans just kind of pigheadedly stand for something that will never be able to be compromised with, and the situation just gets worse and worse and worse. But I think it's kind of like the border shutdown. I meant the border, the government shutdown bills. If that becomes, I don't think this is the case, but if that were to become the future policy, or that the Democrats are trying to pass things to increase, border security, to close the border when too many people are there and all this stuff, and the Republicans just refuse to pass anything unless it's like this completely strict need to deport the millions of people that already live here, and the Democrats don't want to pass that. I think that the Republicans are going to take the L on that one. I don't think it's going to play well overall.
Right.
General Hydra for 2 hours says JD Vance won the debate, and Adam, you cool.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Bernewski for $10 says, for the first 3.5 years, the Democrats literally did claim the border was fine. They only flipped when it became a political hot button. Yeah, exactly.
True. Yeah.
That is true. Alex Wright for $5 says, what border bill did Trump pass in his first term? He had a government trifecta for 2 of those years, and the MPP and Title 42 weren't bills. That's a very good point. And I think that was sort of part of the Republican shortfall, is that, yes, the Republicans this is what I think the Republican shortfall is, though they'll never admit this, is number one, exactly what you said. Trump had control of the government. They didn't pass any sort of border bill. The only thing that really stemmed the tide of immigration was the COVID restrictions. That was it. So that's number one. So Trump didn't really, and building the border wall, and it's very frustrating because I talk to people that are Trump supporters, and it's like talking to Democrats about assault weapons bans, and their brains are shut off. And I say, building the wall is literally fucking pointless. if you can build the biggest wall in the entire world, and if someone can walk up to the wall and say asylum, and then you have to open the door and let them in, the wall is fucking useless at that point. Except I guess, it would be only good at keeping out, drugs and stuff, which is good, but it's not going to that's not going to solve the asylum problem. And so what I don't understand, and this is what's weird to me, is I don't fucking know why Trump is not saying we need to end the ability for people to apply for asylum on the border. That to me would be the obvious position that he should be pushing for. And it's kind of shocking that he doesn't push for that. Loser domain for
He passed a tax cut, though, obviously, and they don't have infinite political power to pass. Like, obviously, Congress is super contentious right now. It's basically a 50-50 affair where if anyone defects, they can't get it passed. So,
what does the tax cut have to do with anything?
well, Trump passed a tax cut and spent his political capital on that. So, like I'm saying, he doesn't have infinite political capital to pass like 100 things. He did pass something. It's not like he didn't do anything.
No, okay. I said, when I say he didn't do anything, I said he didn't do anything.
No,
really
I'm answering the
on
super chat. Look,
right,
I'm answering
yeah.
the super chat, obviously, right?
I think he could have had. I think he should have been pushing for some sort of changing of the border laws. The fact that they didn't really push for anything, to
I
me,
agree.
shows that there wasn't really a good understanding of what the problem was.
I agree. But look, obviously, neither side wants the other side to have like a win on the board, much less 20 wins. So if Trump is like, I passed a tax cut, I passed a border bill, I passed, I got abortion outlawed. Like, they don't want all that stuff. So this goes into my argument against Kamala Harris. It's like she has limited political capital to go after some sort of program. It's hard for me to believe that program is going to be, I got an immigration bill passed. Like, what would be better for her? Like, to end the war in Gaza? I mean, what do her people want? where is her focus going to be most useful for her?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? I mean, I guess you think it's immigration, but I disagree on that.
What was the question?
Like, like, obviously Obama, when he went into office, he's like, healthcare. That's what people want me to focus on. I'm going to spend all my political capital to get healthcare passed. Yeah. What is her thing?
Well, it's interesting because her thing is, I think Kamala's thing is that she's not Trump.
Defeating
really
Trump. Okay.
Thing. Yeah.
Okay. So she's going to defeat Trump and go for a border bill.
I don't think she's going to, as I said, I don't think she's going to go for the border bill unless the Supreme Court overturns the executive order.
This is kind of why Biden just skated by and did whatever he wanted to, because his thing was, I'm going to defeat Trump and return us to normalcy. And that's all his voters really wanted. So he's like, I don't need to work on the public option. Fuck that. Exactly. I don't need to work on immigration. My coalition doesn't care about that.
That's why it's so crazy that there's not even a conversation about how to fix healthcare this election cycle.
Yeah. But look, if everyone knows what Trump is getting elected for, like, you better focus on fixing the border or fuck you, right?
Right.
So he's going to spend all his political capital on that, obviously.
Right.
Anyway.
I literally don't understand why Donald Trump doesn't actually push for the policy that would fix the border. Isn't that weird to you?
But what would that policy be?
To end the ability for people to request asylum on the border.
Yeah.
Why does he not push for that? It's baffling to me.
He probably doesn't know.
Well, then he's a fucking idiot. Like, that's terrible. I mean, someone's had to have told him that. Even fucking Biden knew that. And he's brain is spaghetti, as you said. That's not a good look for Trump if he doesn't even understand what the problem is on the border.
So many people don't either, because they'll say, oh, we have plenty of laws in place. They just need to enforce the laws that exist. And I'm like, well, there's kind of this huge loophole. I mean, they don't even know about the loophole.
But that's the problem, is that, like, because the Republicans didn't want to pass the border bill, this rhetoric is crafted about, well, they don't need to pass any new laws, which we actually don't know if that's true or not. We're not going to know if that's true unless the executive order stands. If it stands in if the executive order stands and the Supreme Court does not throw it out, then the Republicans will be proven correct. You could just do a via executive order. But if it does get thrown out, then they're proven incorrect. So we don't know whether that's true or not. Loser Doberman for 2 Canadian says based shoe. There you go.
Right. She was in the chat most of the stream, so.
Gay Ben for $5 says Sitch is the sort of guy to argue for slavery because it's legal. LOL and stuff. He is for importing migrants to become citizens to vote Democrat.
That seems super bad faith there.
Well, you know, it's unfortunate.
What
Gay
was
Ben,
that? Hold on. So why are you reading the normal chat?
I'm not. It's a super chat.
Oh, it was? Oh, I don't
Yeah.
see it. Where was it?
Okay. Well, I don't know. It's unfortunate, Gay Ben, that you've given us money over the years and are such a bad faith individual. So sorry to hear that.
Look, he could change. I believe in the power of change.
I don't, because in his next super chat, I'm kicking him from the channel. So thank you so much for your donations. Enjoy being bad faith forever.
Look,
alone.
you don't know what happened. I mean, he could have had a bad day. Look.
Okay, well then he can apologize for being a shithead.
No, don't. Look, don't ask anyone to apologize.
Orion for 29 months says Adam contrarianism is why I love you. S-class for the win. There you go. Look at that.
Well, look, I don't really think of myself as a contrarian. I mean, I thought we had genuine
Wait a minute. Yes,
disagreement.
you're a super good. You said that like one of your favorite things is telling people that they're wrong.
Yeah, but a contrarian will do that over the fact that we'll do that even if they themselves are wrong. Obviously, I want to be right. So I like telling people they're wrong, but not for a contrarian reason. I just like setting the record straight on things that are incorrect in the world. So, but look, I think we had genuine, like it got heated in this live stream and I got no hard feelings. I'm sure Sitch has no hard feelings. And I don't think it was a contrarianism thing. I think we had genuine disagreement over the reading of the situation. So it is what it is.
I agree. Solos for $2 says fight, 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 kiss, kiss, kiss. There you go. Thank you. Let's talk about prepping for $2 says daddies are fighting equals sad audience member.
Really?
There you go.
God, you guys are such snowflakes. Jeez.
Right. I know.
Oh, look.
Listen, I get it. The children don't like to see the parents fight. It makes them feel uncomfortable. I get it.
Yeah. Just fucking nut up already.
No, they're just teasing. They're just teasing. Okay. They're fine.
Are they? I hope so.
Yes, they're just teasing. Caleb the Cynic for $5 says, got here just in time to see mommy slap daddy at the dinner table. What a time to be alive. There
Okay, well, that's good.
Nomad for $2 says, Gay Ben loves Sitch. Keep giving him money, LMAFO. Yeah, I know. It is funny, like, because Gay Ben, and I'm not even going to read them. He just had a series of like hyper disgustingly dishonest lying super chats. But I guess thank you for all the money.
Did you ban him?
I did.
Don't ban him. Why?
I banned him. And it is like peak, I guess it's like peak triggered simp if you're gonna pay me money to basically try to be just a lie about me in my positions. So thank you.
I can't even see the super chats, so
That's
I see
interesting.
0 Gay Ben super chats, but maybe because you banned him. I don't know.
Well, no, I literally didn't ban him until after I read it. So
well, I didn't see it to begin with.
Interesting.
Yeah.
KF for $10 says, I assume Adam doesn't like liberals making a huge deal out of unarmed deaths from police or climate doomerism and calls them filthy liars, but he's ultra charitable about blatant conservative lies.
I mean, no, not really. Do I call those people liars?
Yeah.
Making a huge deal out of unarmed deaths of police officers. Oh yeah, they are lying about that. Yeah. Climate change doomerism. Oh yeah, they are. They are filthy liars about that. Yeah, actually,
well, there
you're
you
right.
go.
But he's ultra charitable about blatant conservative lies. Well, I mean, I did admit that it was dishonest if you looked at the letter of the law, but I was interested in more of the moral component that was going on. And I was upset that they didn't let us hear more of his rebuttal on the Like he was obviously going to make an argument why this wasn't a lie, and they cut him off. So,
Well, they gave him
it's
a
not a
minute and he
question of
explained. He
charity.
explained. I know. I agree with Caleb. I think you're being way too charitable to Trump and Vance in the last couple months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Statutory ape for 7 Canadian says, regardless of whether America likes these current immigration laws, Sitch is correct here, Adam. Thank you.
Regardless of whether America likes, what is correct about what though? He doesn't even say.
About this, the argument that Vance was lying and was incorrect and should have framed it differently.
Well, how do you know he's not talking about whether or not Kamala is going to do an immigration bill?
Oh, or maybe he's talking about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Statutory ape. Like, we don't even know what you're talking about. How are we supposed to assess whether or not Sitch is correct or not if we don't even know?
Well, I'm
you're
correct.
saying?
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Then I'm correct.
Look, a lot of people thought you were completely incorrect. So,
of course, because they're on their team.
it's a
Kevin
team
Walter.
thing?
It's 100% a team thing.
Okay.
Kevin Walter for $20 says Sitch has apparently been drinking the blue Kool-Aid if he thinks Kamala gives a single solitary F about the border. Both teams have been talking about fixing it for decades and they do nothing. I mean, I agree that both teams have been talking about it for decades and have done nothing. But again, I don't believe for a second that the Democrats would have pivoted this hard on the border, that they would support a border bill written by a conservative that's this conservative if they weren't terrified that it was going to destroy their electoral chances. And this is where I disagree with Adam, is even if Kamala wins, it doesn't just disappear because the issue isn't going to disappear. It's just going to get worse if nothing changes. So they're going to have to address it.
Be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue it didn't really come to prominence until Republicans started shipping people to blue states.
Yes.
Kind of making it an issue.
No, and that was a genius move for them to do.
Right.
Definitely.
Well, they could continue to do that, obviously. So now
right, but they obviously will.
Yeah.
If the Supreme Court overturns the executive order, and so you have, or even if they don't, and for whatever reason the immigration just starts flooding again and becomes, higher than even was under Biden. I mean, Kamala's going to lose. The Democrats will lose the midterms easy, and Kamala will lose the next election. If she runs on fixing this very easy to see problem and just completely doesn't do it, she has no fucking shot at winning. That's why I'm saying that's why I don't believe she can just sit on her ass and do nothing. It's personal. It's completely self-interest. Dash, the simple for $5 says, Sitch complaining over this is pitiful. The only one saying Vance looks bad because of the fact check is you, Sitch. A team for now. Well, no, see, you didn't actually look at, I'm assuming you're kind of stuck in a information silo, because if you get out of your information silo and you look at the left-wing media and who they control, what most of the moderates see, they played that clip of Vance saying, oh, you said you weren't going to fact check. And then they literally end the clip right there. That's what the left is saying. And that's what moderates are saying. And that makes Vance look horrible. And if you can't acknowledge that, you're too blinded by your cheerleading status of Trump Vance to acknowledge what is true. That is a bad look for Vance. Federal Burger for 12 months says, came for the commentary, stayed for the unresolved sexual tension. There you go.
That's hilarious.
Filthy Casual for 562 says, Dad, stop. I'm going to tell Grandpa J-Mac you're fighting. There you go.
J-Mac likes it.
He does. Chuckle Desk for $20 says, the problem with the immigrant issue is the same one might have in regards to presidential immunity. Legally speaking, the president is immune. Is that something most Americans want? Well, you'd have to explain it to them. Huh. Okay. Anonymous Cow for $5 says, the expert said COVID wouldn't spread during the BLM protests. LOL. It's hard to attack institutions because even one criticism causes knee-jerk reactions. I mean, that's a fair point. And that is sort of the problem. This is the problem that we're in, is that we need institutions. Institutions have to exist truth-making institutions, but our institutions have become completely corrupted by, left-wing politics essentially and TDS. And it's unclear when Trump is gone whether they will be fixed or not, or if they'll just continue down the pathway of destruction. So
I'm laughing at JMax's next super chat.
JMac for $20 says, look, I'm tired of 9 out of 10 dentists telling me the same damn thing for years. They're in the pockets of big fluoride. I want to hear the 10th dentist. What wacky and crazy ideas is he spouting, huh? Well, thank you,
He's telling
JMac.
you not to floss. That's what he's telling you.
Well, see, but JMac has shown the perfect example of why you do need experts and intuitions and institutions that are trustworthy. And if you just have this knee-jerk, this is the problem, is like, yes, there's a knee-jerk reaction when they're attacked, but there's also a knee-jerk reaction response, which is, oh, well, if the quote institutions, which includes, thousands of millions of different people, are wrong about Trump or wrong about one thing, then you're automatically not going to trust them on anything. And that's obviously going to lead you down the path of, believing a bunch of stupid shit. Like, I don't know if you saw this, Adam, there's like this, there's a completely mind-numbingly retarded theory about the hurricane.
Let's
Did you
hear
hear
it. What
about
is
any
it?
of this? So
No.
I was curious as to why North Carolina got so massively fucked up by the hurricane. So I started to look into it. And apparently what happened was there was a rain system that was actually over that region for like 2 days prior. So it had been raining for like 2 days before the hurricane even
Oh,
came.
soften the ground up.
Right. And it softened the ground up, and it was like a lot of rain. And then when the hurricane came, the hurricane actually mixed with the existing rain system to make it even worse.
Wow.
And that's what caused like the massive flooding. And I was like, oh, that's so fucked up. And it's super fucked up because it's like, I don't know if there's really any way to stop that. There's no, like, how do you prevent something like that from happening? And so I was like, oh, that's really fucked up. But then I was looking through this, I saw that there's like this mind-numbingly stupid group of people who have, because they're so not trustworthy of institutions, their brain melts and they just become completely, anti-science, and everything's a conspiracy. And this dumb conspiracy has formed that, because there's apparently there's lithium under the ground in North Carolina, and the government wants to mine the lithium in North Carolina. And so they somehow use their magic weather machine to make the flooding happen so they could flood all the people out of the area and buy the land from them for their lithium mines.
Wow.
So
that's going on. That happened.
Apparently that happened. And it's so sad because I'm like, you have this situation where, like, wait a minute. If you were living in Asheville or one of these places where your literal entire town got destroyed, and you happen to be living in an area where there's lithium, so the government would have been willing, and still is willing, to buy your land out. And apparently the way it works is they have to pay you what it cost like 3 to 5 years ago. So it would have been before your town got destroyed. And they're willing to basically pay you a bunch of money for what is now useless land for you because your house got destroyed. That's a wonderful thing for those people. That's not a bad thing.
Right. Because they can get out of town with a big pocket full of cash.
Exactly. So that shows you the dangers of sort of getting sucked down this kind of, pathway of thinking. Kevin Walter for $5 says the GOP should pivot to supporting abortions up to 3 years of age for a while. There you go.
Well, look, obviously you're probably pro-life and you probably don't like the pivot. So there are definitely going to be people who are pro-life that are not going to like this new direction of the Republican Party. But for the Republican Party to survive, they're going to have to go in that direction. So, I
mean, I agree. I think we should be supporting abortions up to 3 years. There's some unruly children that just need to be put down.
Right.
Oxycy for $5 says, Adam, you keep saying the base of Republicans are behind on abortion. What do you think the base of Republicans want with abortion compared to the base of Dems?
Well, I'm talking specifically about the base wanting abortion to be made illegal. Like, obviously there are some people that illegal with exceptions, but like they don't want it to be legal, and the Dems want unrestricted abortion. But I think the Dems argument is better. The Dems' argument is it's like, yes, we can carve out all of these exceptions, but those exceptions are going to spook doctors who are just going to be like, I'm not going to do it. So effectively, it's going to be abortion is illegal or unaccessible. So you agree with that, Sitch, right?
Well, I mean, it depends on what we call the base, right? I would imagine, because it's kind of complicated. It depends, like, well, because when you look at polling, even the majority of Republicans are in favor of abortion with restrictions, I believe. So when you say the base, I mean, if you mean like obviously the hardcore people, I would imagine are more, they want zero abortion.
Yeah,
right?
life at conception. I thought I made that clear.
Right.
Unless Ostracy is saying the Republican base is in favor of abortion.
Mm-hmm. No. I don't think he's saying that. Let's see, 63% of people. Huh. So according to this, it says 63% of people want it legal in all/most cases. And that's kind of a bad way of framing it. 36 want it illegal in all/most cases.
That's the base I'm talking about right there.
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, wait, no, let me correct myself because I was incorrect. So it says according to this polling, the 57%, so the majority of Republicans want it illegal in all/most cases. Though, okay, I do think this polling is bad if they're combining all/most, because it's the same thing in both ways. I think that's kind of bad framing. But anyway, 57% of Republicans want it illegal in all/most cases. 41% of Republicans want it legal in all/most cases. So even though the majority of Republicans, it's still pretty close split. Unlike in the Democrats, 85% want it legal in all/most cases, and only 14 want it illegal in all/most cases. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's what you're trying to keep your coalition together.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So then they kind of did further. They had conservative Republican, moderate Republican, conservative/moderate Democrat, and then like far Democrat. Every group of these people are overwhelmingly in favor of abortion rights, except for the conservative Republican one. So even the moderate Republicans were in favor of abortions by majority. So that's the problem that you're talking about in terms of like they're behind on the issue.
Yeah, and the Republicans have, I mean, they vote, right? So they want to keep them as a voter coalition. They won't want them to stop voting because they didn't get their way. So they're going to like gingerly try to say, oh, there are other issues you can vote on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Whether or not that's the case, we'll see. Maybe they'll string them along. Maybe they'll, gaslight them into believing they're actually going to do something about. They're going to win at some point in the future.
Caleb for $5 says, see, Adam thinks the shift away from hardcore abortion restrictions is authentic, but can't fathom Democrats wanting to address the real border issue. I'm
not sure. I'm not sure that it is authentic. I'm kind of agnostic on whether or not the JD Vance story is like authentic.
Right, but even if it's not authentic, I thought you were arguing that you believe JD Vance is trying to essentially soften up the Republican Party to change their position on abortion to being
that's
softer,
exactly
right?
what's going on. Yeah.
But why do you not think that Democrats would do the same thing with the border?
Because they're not talking about it in kind of the same language. I guess that's probably the case.
But they are. Kamala Harris keeps saying, we're going to pass the border bill. We're going to pass the border bill. We're going to be strong on the border. We're going to be tough on the border.
Yeah, but she's framing it as a political fight between her and Donald Trump. She's not framing it as the border. Something needs to happen about the border. She's not coming out and telling some touching story about how a friend of hers told her that someone who was an illegal immigrant came into their home and raped them, right?
Jesus,
And they
right.
think, and they
Right.
think, oh my God, maybe something does need to be done about the border, right? That's not how it's being framed. It's being framed as Donald Trump is a hypocrite. He doesn't want to pass a border bill. We tried to give him a border bill. We don't even want the fucking border bill. And we tried to cater to Donald Trump anyway, and he just slapped our hands away. That's the way she's framing it. It's completely different with Vance.
No, that's an interesting point, and I agree the framing is completely different. And
Yeah.
while I would agree with you that if Kamala or Tim Walz came out with some personal story of someone who was raped or killed or something,
That would be harder to
Right.
walk away from
Right.
after the
Yes.
election.
I agree with you that it would make it so that it would make it somewhat more believable that they would do something about the border. But I would say that it was a mistake, the same way I think it was a mistake for Vance to bring up that personal story about abortion,
Why? Why is it a mistake?
because it's going to piss off your base too much that doesn't want you to pivot in that direction. That's why I was
Right.
saying when they're running, they have to do the balancing act between what the more extreme people of their party wants and what the moderates want.
So you don't even think telling the story is effective, but passing the bill, which will piss off a huge amount of the base, that's the effective political move.
Yes, because so much of this game of politics, as you rightly know, is fuck the other guy. And so if the Democrats can frame the border issue as fuck Donald Trump, there's going to be, I think, a good amount of the base who normally would be against the bill would be in favor of it just because Kamala framed it as something Trump didn't want.
But Trump will be inconsequential if he loses the election, obviously.
Yeah, but
It'll
that
be
feeling
harder to
that
frame
feeling
it
will
that
still be
way.
maintained. That feeling will still be maintained.
I just look, so she passes the border bill and says, fuck Donald Trump. We passed an immigration bill.
No, she's just going to say we passed the border bill, and there'll be a handful of the most, left-wing progressives will complain about it. Most moderate Democrats will say, we did it, we fixed the border, whether they actually did fix the border or not, and that will be that.
It just doesn't read as a fuck you. Like Donald Trump wanted something done on immigration and we did it. Fuck that guy.
And Donald Trump stopped us. Donald Trump stopped us from passing this bill, and we said fuck you, and he lost the election, and we passed the bill. What do you mean?
I think it's closer to we didn't even want that bill anyway.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Ryan Uhl for $10 says, I think Vance wants it to not be life destroying to have a child, which is why he would want to increase the tax credit for having children, increase child care services, increase maternity leave time, etc. That's what I'm assuming that's what his position is. That's why I thought it was so dumb for him to tell that story. Because I feel like if he removed that story, he could have just said, there are people that I know that had abortions because they couldn't financially support them. And that's why I'm in favor of all these, all these things that you just listed out. That would have made sense to me. So Orca for $5 says, I rewatched the 2016 debate. Trump said he would take it back to the states. I don't remember it being reported on, but he did run on it. Hi, Wormy. There you go. Yeah, I believe that was always Trump's position. So Fondue for $5 says, I think it's something like, quote, I don't want to get rid of abortions. I want to get rid of the reason women feel they need them. That was my interpretation of what his statement was supposed to be. Yeah.
Well, this is why I say what he said was brilliant, because everyone walks away with their own interpretation of it.
Right. Fate of Morality for $5 says, these past few weeks really show why A-Team reigns supreme. S-Class has lost control of the elephant way too long. Well, I do agree. I've been getting angrier recently, so I got to work on that.
I like it, so get as angry as you want.
There you go. I'm glad you like it.
Look, as a friend, maybe it's not good for your cortisone levels. Like, so look, there's pros and cons. Okay, it is entertaining. Right. It's not necessarily good for your health. So
there you go. Righteous and Different for $2 says, you skipped Vance fact checking Minnesota abortion law. Did he? I'll have to check I don't remember. Did he call out Walz is bullshit? He might have. Yeah. So I think he should have really just forced, like, that was what's interesting is Walz, and this is where I think Vance fucked up, even though I think he did better overall. Walz forced Vance to respond to a question. He forced him to respond to did Donald Trump win the election? Vance needed to force Walz to answer the question, does your state allow an abortion for non-medical reasons in the 9th month? Yes or no? And you have Walz look at the camera with his panicked face and bumble out some fucking answer, and there's the clip for the Republicans. So D5280 for $5 says survey of greater than 5,000 biologists near all secular progressives. 98% of them said life begins at conception. I thought A team was team truth. What?
Oh my God.
5,000 biologists that are secular progressives said that life begins at conception. I don't know. I'm unfamiliar with that survey, but okay. Mr. Ubercross for $20. Thank you. Says I'm about an hour behind if my memory is correct. Vance didn't claim the Haitians were illegal. He said millions of illegals are in the country. He didn't reference the Haitians until the host brought it up. Well, if that's the case, then I don't understand why he'd even pick a fight with them in the first place. That was even dumber then.
So, but then it wasn't a lie, right?
Well, then then it wasn't. Then why did he even bring it up? Then he should have just said, I didn't say that the Haitians were illegal. So.
Interesting.
Let's talk about prepping for $10. Says Miles Dyson. I'm not responsible for Skynet. When I started the AI, it wasn't AI, just a bundle of code. 9 months later, it became an AI, and I can't be blamed for the results of day one acts.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that?
I don't know what that's in reference to, but you know. Alex Wright for $5 says Vance did great. He's not a knuckle-dragging ape like Trump. Thoughts on Trump saying he'll veto an abortion ban or limitation on Truth Social? Oh, really? He said that. Did he say it today?
He did a tweet that was all caps and bold.
No, I saw that, but he didn't say. I didn't see him say he was gonna. Wait, what did he say in the tweet?
That didn't say he would.
What was the tweet that you're talking?
He was pretty explicit. It's on his timeline, but I mean, he tweets so much, it might be hard to find.
That's why, yeah, I know. It's like a million.
It's the one that's in all caps and bold. I was like, geez.
I saw Elon put a tweet where he said he's going to he got rid of the bold thing, didn't he?
Yeah, he did on the timeline, so it doesn't appear in your timeline, but
was it on Trump's official
I saw
thing?
On Twitter.
Let's see.
Yeah, I saw
here
on
we
his
go.
Twitter.
Everyone knows I would not support a federal abortion ban under any circumstances. Oh, okay. And would in fact veto it. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
You're correct. Because it's up to the states to decide based on the will of their voters. The will of the people. Like Ronald Reagan before me, I fully support the 3 exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I do not support the Democrats' radical position of late-term abortion, like as an example, in the 7th, 8th, or 9th month, or in case there's any question, the possibility of execution of the baby after birth. Thank you for your attention to this matter. There you go. I wonder how the pro-life people feel about that. I mean, the Republicans, if Trump wins and the Republicans have control of the House and Senate, they would have to be total retards to send an abortion bill to Trump, right? That, like, we both agree that's not going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
That'd be so disastrous.
Yeah, because it'd be an ultimate bait and switch. They lose all credibility.
Well, I'm saying if they wouldn't force Trump in that position where he'd have to veto it and just really piss off that
of course
huge chunk of the base.
Of course.
Because I'm guessing that I do think Trump would veto it. I don't think Trump would do a bait and switch. I think if he won and the Republicans won the House and Senate and they wrote some national abortion bill, I think Trump would veto it.
Yeah.
All for $5, living out his bizarre sexual fantasies. Says Sitch is a power bottom. I knew it. A-team makes Sitch scream. There you go. Disgusting. But thank you for the $5. Malik for $10 says Walz/Vance 2028 baby. I mean, with all the love between the two of them, I guess it's possible, right?
No. Never gonna happen, but
Actually, for $5 says Sitch, how can you call me biased? 5 weeks ago, you were saying Vance was such a bad pick and should be kicked off the ticket. Seems you were wrong. Yeah, you're correct in terms of that Vance was able to salvage his salvage his reputation and do very well in the debate. You're biased in the terms of the fact that I said that Vance won the debate and did good, and then you turn around and say that I'm too critical of him and have VDS and are saying that I'm coping after I said that I thought he did well and won the debate. So, which is a completely nonsensical position.
You have to say it 10 times in a row, Sitch, otherwise it doesn't sink in.
I know. Well, people just can't conceive of having a conversation where I argue things or say things that don't align with my personal preferences. Their brains literally cannot comprehend it. It's fascinating to watch, but Fondue for $5 says, no, Adam, make it completely unbelievable and watch them still lap it up completely. I'm not sure what that was in reference to exactly, but.
Well, they do. I mean, often do that. What are you talking about? We look at these bills and the public perception of the bill is completely 180 degrees in the opposite direction of the actual bill.
Right.
Yeah,
That
both
is true.
sides like spend the bill however the fuck they want to spend it. And they do lap it up. I don't know if you're trying to make fun of me or what, but
Hayden Dill for $2 says, I don't want to meet Walt's school shooter friends. Yeah, there's one part where Tim Walz
he did a misspoke
and said he
so.
had school shooter friends, so.
I met the school shooters and we became friends.
Right.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Right.
Did you exchange hunting tips?
Britt Cormer for $5 says, you should pull Rachel Maddow clip. She did say that Tim won by a long way. She called JD smooth, but said Tim won. Really? Okay. That's pretty retarded. I mean, it's interesting. At least she was smart enough, I guess, to call him smooth, but I don't know how she could say Tim won. Except that he got that one, unless she's just referring to that one clip that Tim was able to generate. So. Fondue for $2 says Adam is based Zench cultus.
Yeah, I don't know what that
means.
is.
Yeah. Edward Senior for $10 says, since the Haitians were about to be deported, saying that they were illegal was accurate. Once they were granted protected status, they became legal again. I mean, if he said, or someone were to say they were illegal at one point, then sure. I guess you could say, well, technically what he said was true. I don't believe that's what he said. Stock for 30 months says, I've been running a lot recently and my soles were wore out, so I bought a pair of Vances. Now I waltz into the gym to endless stares of awe and envy. There you go.
Look at that.
There you go.
Poetic, Doug. I like it.
it.
True poetry. We need more of that in this world. Less hostility. More love and poems.
Hold on. My browser just crashed for a second.
What?
Terrible.
Browser taking a break.
I know.
How dare you?
Electro for $20 says, guys, we know Sitch isn't being truthful here. Like he says his waifu is Tifa, but when was the last time we heard her talk about her? I'm starting to think he is lying. Tisk tisk. Anyway, S class is best class. Ooh, there you go. Maybe I found another. Okay. Maybe I found another waifu. Keeping secret.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, who knows?
A secret waifu?
Kevin Walter for $5 says, inaccurate read, I am pro-life, but also think life begins at conception and no exceptions for necessary abortion are absurd stances. Interesting. Well, there you go.
Okay. Look.
Consider corrected.
So you're
Mr.
in
Cynical.
favor of exceptions. Good.
Well, I would assume. Well, I get if you're including rape too, right? Rape and incest, because I'd assume everyone is in favor of exception of life of the mother, obviously, but yeah, I'm assuming you mean rape and incest. Mr. Cynical for $5 says, hi, Sitch and Adam. Have you seen the clip of Hassan showing his non-political streamer friend a Houthi musical? It's awkward and kind of funny. I have seen that. Maybe we'll watch it tomorrow at some point. It's like cool. Totally insane. Hassan shows some friend of his like this weird Houthi propaganda, and he's talking about how like good it is, and his friend is like so obviously put off and like disgusted that Hassan is showing him this, but he's too much of a coward to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Wow. We got to watch that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's great. Oil King for $5 says, have you heard about the Varmagate? No. I'm looking over the books you have read, Adam, the book Why Gender Matters. It's an okay book. The corn part is dumb.
Yeah, I said that I read an earlier, what do you call it, version draft,
Mm-hmm.
and they have an updated version that's someone messaged me and told me that it was woke, that he's bought into the gender as a spectrum nonsense.
Oh,
So,
really? That's
yeah.
so sad.
I actually did an interview with the author of that book, Leonard Sachs, and it's on my Think Club channel if you want to watch it, where I mean he's like crazy insane against Jordan Peterson, and I try to convince him that he's got the wrong take on Jordan Peterson, and he's just not having it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a interesting discussion.
Right.
Did you skip Toxic Mix for $50 on purpose, or is that
I don't wait. No, I don't see it.
Oh, you don't?
Wait a minute. Oh wait, no, I skipped a bunch. Wait, hold on. Maybe when I refreshed it, did I lose something?
I don't know. Just
I did
seems
skip.
like
Wait, hold on,
toxic.
hold on. I missed Brian's 100 and J-Max 50. I don't even see Toxic Mix 50.
Hmm.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Well, I don't see J-Max did 100. I don't see that.
Well, you
Like,
read
what's
Toxic's 50 because I don't even see it. I don't know. The UI's all fucked up or something.
interesting. Wow. There's stuff on my end that I don't see. Oh, look, I did. Yeah, look. Oh, Brian has 100. Look at that. And J-Mac has another 50. Where is that?
Read the Toxic Mix one first because I don't see it.
Look at this.
Oh, wait, no, I can see it on the other thing. Toxic Mix for $50 has an easily subverted 5,000 average daily crossings with a hard 1,400 floor. Easy for the POTUS to lift restriction with minimal mandates to enforce hardly strikes me as a heavily conservative. Beginning to think you're triggering me on this issue.
Who's you? Sitch or me?
Me, I'm assuming.
Oh,
Well, first of all,
An-
okay.
go
There's like
ahead.
this weird thing that people do where they pretend that there's a magical world where the Republicans are going to get everything they want, or that the Democrats are going to get everything they want. They're not. They're going to create a bill that is a compromise that they can both live with. That's what the border bill was. So you have, when the crossings reached 5,000 or 1,400 or whatever, you can close the border down until the until the people could be adjudicated that are seeking asylum. If you say that's not strict enough, that's fine. Because guess what? I fucking agree with you. I'm the guy who said the only way to solve the problem is to say you can't seek asylum on the border. But guess what? Don't get mad at me. Get mad at Donald Trump because he's too fucking stupid to actually voice that opinion and advocate for it. What is Donald Trump's what is his position right now? It's I'm going to build a wall and I'm going to deport people. Okay. How does that stop the people coming here seeking asylum? It doesn't. It doesn't do that. So if you want to complain that that the bill isn't hard enough on immigration, go for it. That's fine. I just don't want people to lie about it. And that's what the Republican Party overall is just doing, is they're just lying about the bill. If they thought the numbers were too high, they could just seek to negotiate them to get them lower. If they had some alternative, they could just fucking say it. But they're not. They didn't say shit. When people don't say shit, it's very obvious they don't have an answer. It's exactly like when Donald Trump was president. What did Donald Trump run on in 2016? Again and again and again. On day one, I'm going to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Lock her up.
Well, besides lock her up. Yeah, lock her up. And then I'm going to repeal and replace Obamacare. And what happened when Donald Trump won the election? Well, he did try to repeal it. That is true. But there was zero fucking thing to replace it. They didn't even come up with any. There was literally nothing they came up with to try to replace it. And that's 4 years
Not
later.
even a concept?
There was not even a concept. Donald Trump was literally president for 4 years and had no fucking concept of a plan, even though he said he was going to replace Obamacare.
But they did do something on hospital pricing transparency.
They did do something on price transparency, which hilariously, and I forgot to mention this, JD Vance was the first person to bring that up, Adam. I thought of you. He actually brought up the price transparency in hospitals, even though Trump didn't bring it up in his debate.
Yeah.
So
Trump doesn't remember that he did it.
Right.
Which is unfortunate, yeah.
So if the Republicans or you, Toxic Mix, or anyone wants a stronger bill, that's fine. I'm sorry that your candidate can't actually vocalize it in a way that makes sense.
But Toxic Miss, you do. Let's see. Your internet connection is unstable. Why internet?
I'm back.
Okay. I
Okay.
wonder if it's your internet or my internet.
I don't know. I can't tell.
My internet. Look, I'm pumping out to YouTube though, and the
Well,
YouTube frame rate didn't go down or anything.
If the chat hears you speak and it doesn't break up or pause, then it's me. If there was a big pause and they heard you sped up, then it was you. So
I'm gonna refresh this because I think there's we missed some super chats in here.
Brian, thanks so much for the $100. Says Sitch is correct. Thank you for the $100. People think the Republican Party wants to control women's bodies rather than protect life. And the way for people to understand that is to give support to women and babies so they don't believe they are on their own. That's why he brought up that story.
Well, then why didn't he frame it in the context of economics? Why did he frame it in the context of she had a significant other that was unstable?
That's why I said he fucked up. Because I thought he was trying to frame in the way of economics and then didn't.
Okay.
So
well, look, I'm sure he doesn't have infinite friends that are in the situation where they've had an abortion and thought it was a great idea. So
well, he shouldn't have
the
brought
situation
that story up
is
at
what
all,
it is.
So. J-Mac, our circuit fire, thanks so much for the $50. Says, as you guys know, I'm totally anti-abortion, and I, as many others on my side, view Vance's statements as signaling to moderates. It's an admission that our position is currently losing ground, at least as the national discussion is concerned.
Yeah, look.
Well, I agree. It's definitely an admission that is definitely 100% admission that that position is losing ground. I guess what we were talking about is what is Vance's position or goal in terms of change? Is it to change the national conversation to be more pro-life, which is what I interpret his statement as being, or is it to essentially try to change the Republican Party's position to be more pro-choice, which I believe is what you were arguing at.
That's my argument, yeah.
Right.
And to still vote for Republicans.
Right. Basically
to say, look, we fought this battle and lost. I mean, that's kind of happened on gay marriage, right? But you're still going to have holdouts constantly that are like, this was the biggest mistake ever. We're still fighting this battle, right? But do you see Republican politicians going out and saying, we're going to do a ban on gay marriage? No.
Yeah, I think the gay marriage though, that doesn't have like the 50 years of energy behind it the way the abortion stuff does. I don't think those are going to be in the same category. Like the gay marriage argument, from my view, is basically indefensible from an ideological, philosophically consistent stance, unless you're just going to cite Christianity, where the abortion one it's a logically coherent argument and it's an unanswerable question, essentially. And so I think that's part of why it will just stick around, unlike the gay marriage one.
Well, unless it becomes untenable for the politicians, like it's just an unwinnable position, then why would they continue to bring it up? And if they don't continue to bring it up, you got the electorate kind of screaming into the void.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem, is that if it becomes unwinnable, you have a situation where, as I read that polling, because I was incorrect, if 57% of the Republican Party is still, the majority of the Republican Party is still on the train of wanting abortions to be illegal in all/most cases, even if that means that they'll never win another election nationally on that issue, I don't know what they do. That really puts the Republican politicians in a bind. So,
hence a reason to move on and not bring it up.
We'll see. Statutory 8 for 7 Canadian says it was in regards to Vance lying and the massive argument mom and dad had. S-Class wins today. Well, thank you, Statutory 8. So there you go. Fondue for $5 says, "Ah, love you, Adam. I wouldn't make fun of you like that. It was in regards to making up drama for DDG." Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
hilarious.
Also,
Hilarious.
Sitch is the Warhammer god of change. There you go. D5280 for $2 says, biologist survey came from Dr. Stephen Andrew Jacobs. Oh, nice. We'll check it out. The scientific consensus of when human life begins. Cool. Peer-reviewed journalists in the biological life science literature publish articles that represent the biological view that a human's life begins at fertilization. As those statements are typically offered without explanation or citation, the fertilization view seems to be uncontested by the editors, reviewers, and authors who publish the scientific journals. However, Americans are split on whether the fertilization view is a philosophical religious belief or a biological scientific fact. Interesting.
Well, look,
interesting.
I
Check
think
it
you
out.
can say this is why they moved the debate from life to personhood, because it's a much harder claim to make that personhood begins at conception.
I'm glad you said that, because that could be the problem here. Yeah, because when you said life, I'm kind of assuming you mean like personhood, but that's not the case. Obviously, life, as in biological existence for an entity, starts at conception. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So when they say they disagree with that, they mean something else. So I guess that's a good point to bring up here. Okay, that is interesting. Adam Unfriended for $10 says, I'm disappointed in both the president and VP debates. I want to know which waifus they prefer, Tifa or Aerith, and Asuka or Rey. Based on their answers, that's how I'll decide my vote.
You may never get answers to those questions.
I mean, I think they should have asked the POV question.
I agree. That should be the last question in every presidential debate.
That's the real question, right? Fondue for $2 says, quote, these healthcare costs got hands. Trump 2017. There you go.
Wow.
Porkers for $20 says, been listening to you guys for years. Thanks for the content. S-Class is best class. But A-Team also reigns supreme. Well, thank you, Porkers.
Thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks. Wow. Long-time listener. Always good.
Oshie for $10 says, Sitch, I have to ask, your basic response to any critique I make of you is that I'm biased. Do you think it's not possible that your initial negative view of Vance is impacting your opinion now? Well, any basic critique of me is not why I say you're biased. Why I'm saying you're biased is that, first of all, whenever I make any critique of anyone on the right, you just completely shut down 100%, number one. And then number two, how is it, like, think about what you're actually saying. How is it that I, a person who admittedly had a very negative view and still does of JD Vance, completely to everyone who's listening's knowledge, come into this conversation in the stream, and I don't know, maybe you just tuned in late and didn't go back, where in the beginning of the stream, I literally say, I came into this debate with a very negative biased view of JD Vance, and I thought he was going to lose, but he totally surprised me, and I think he won. How am I letting my bias impact me in that situation, Oster? That makes no fucking sense at all. We literally, someone said that
your bias break down in different areas of critique, though. Like abortion could be a different area. Like the monarchist stuff could be a different area.
Okay, but let's look at abortion.
Immigration stuff could be a different area. Like just because you say like stylistically he did an excellent job, that doesn't kind of get you out of the handcuffs of bias in other areas.
You would be correct if I went into this. Look, this is how the people that are biased are judging this. Okay. Number one, someone just said, Rachel Maddow said that JD Vance was smooth, but Tim Walz won.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's obviously very biased. Or number two, and I heard some other people say this, who said, oh, JD Vance was good, but he's a fucking liar. And he lied about everything and he just got away with it. Right. And they spent their entire time, all they did was spent trying to talk about all the things that JD Vance did that were lies. That's what the biased people do. Where instead, we went through this and I explained where I thought JD Vance said things that I thought worked and where he said things that I thought didn't work. Okay. And I'm glad you brought up abortion too. We literally had in our abortion conversation, my preference is pro-choice. And yet I'm arguing that JD Vance fucked up the conversation in his answer in terms of not being pro-life enough. So how is that me giving into my bias at that point? If I was being biased, I'd just say like, oh, I'm glad JD Vance said all this stuff and undermined his position.
Bias is a tough accusation. Look, some super chats have accused me of being biased. They said, look, I'm too easy on Republicans and too hard on Democrats, right? It's tough because obviously if I am biased, I'm going to be the last person to be aware of it, right? But at the same time, I could make the same kind of argument that you're making. Look, I'm tough on Donald Trump all the time. I said Donald Trump is a disaster for doing January 6th, right? I said Donald Trump is going to be, if he loses the election, hated more than President Nixon is. Like, I have all these different things that I've said against Donald Trump, but I don't necessarily know that it gets me out of the charge of bias in some particular situation where I constantly am looking and going, maybe I am biased on this. I'm not exactly sure. And I can never, this is the hard thing about bias, because you can never turn to yourself and say, of course, Adam, you're not being biased, right? Because I would be the last person to be aware of that.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but if someone's going to levy the case that I'm being biased against Vance in terms of my critique and praise of his debate performance, you need to actually need to provide an argument and not just say, LOL, you have TDS.
No, yeah, I agree with you there.
That's literally the layer of critique here. So
too many people are constantly lazy in that department. Like, they don't give you an actual tangible argument. Hopefully I tried to give some arguments here, but it doesn't seem like we were really arguing over bias as much as just our perception of the situation. So, Well, look, we have different takes. Some takes I have will resonate with people. Some takes you have will resonate with people. So I just, the bias charge, I guess people use it because it's easy. It's just easy way to say, oh, this argument that this person's making doesn't have any credibility because this person has an axe to grind, right? That's why people use it. Well, I don't know that I have an axe to grind, though. Like, I could care less if Trump or, like, now I'm kind of leaning towards wanting Kamala to win just so I could say I told you so when she doesn't do anything about immigration. So
that's funny.
Look, and bias is like, I think a bias, like, a lot of progressives, they're going to lose their fucking minds if Trump wins. Okay. That's going to create a massive bias, right?
Right.
On election night, I'm not going to be crying my eyes out over either direction. So how am I biased?
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I get frustrated when it's like, why am I wasting my time and energy to try to actually be neutral, which harms me and Adam's, us trying to be more neutral harms our ability to make money, harms our ability to grow as a channel. And if we're both doing this because we both feel that it is right for people to come in and start attacking us, that's why I see red. Because like, we're literally sacrificing money to try to do something that we think is morally correct. And then people still attack us because we're not parroting their preferred talking points. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, go fuck yourself.
Well, look, we do have positions, though. I mean, obviously, I have a position. I'm pro-choice. I think the pro-choice is the less harmful position.
No, right. But that's my point. We're both pro-choice, but we're not going to sit here as 99% of political commentators do and say JD Vance and Donald Trump are fucking retards, and how, because they're both, advocating
pro-life,
for pro-life or sending back the states or blah, 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 blah. We're going to be like, okay, is this effective political messaging for the country as a whole? Is it effective political messaging for their base? Like, we're trying to look beyond whatever our personal preferences are. And so
Right.
it's like, and by the way, I know a lot of you guys appreciate that, but the majority of people that listen to political content, they don't appreciate that. They just want you to be a cheerleader for one side. So I am going to see red, and I'm going to get really fucking mad when we're literally sacrificing our financial success to do what I think is morally correct. And people who just want the parroted answer are going to get mad that we're not parroting their preferred answer and start accusing us of bias or just TDS or whatever. So,
Well, bias is the easy accusation. Just look, I would have to go back and re-listen to when it got contentious on the stream. I don't think it was over bias at all. I think we genuinely had differences of opinion on interpretation of the situation with JD Vance. Mostly just Sitch's law over the definition of lie. So, but that's not bias. That's not related to bias.
right.
If anything, you could say it's my bias towards the media just being complete fucking retards. Because I can't stand that shit.
Mm-hmm. Zero for $10 says, are your X DMs open? YouTube won't let me say what I want to say in a super chat, and I can't figure out why. They are. Yes.
Yeah.
D528 for $2 says, read the biologist study. It specifies human life. I will read it. I can't read it right now, but I will read it off stream. Toxic Mix for $10 says, the problem with this bill is if you understand the GOP intuitions and the Democrats' recent behavior, there's no reason to trust the bill is good faith compromise based on the amount of loopholes baked in. So again, because I remember this is an argument that was made at the time, was that this essentially gave, if this is what you're referring to, is that it gave the president or the president or the Department of Homeland Security or the border people or whatever, it gave some executive position the authority to essentially override what the bill said, right? That was a contention when the bill came out. And where I call bullshit on that being a real concern is because, as I said, if that was the real concern, if there's one part of the bill that's the real concern, and it's that part of the bill that you're talking about, which I can understand people not being trustworthy of the Democrats on, then the Republicans very simply say, okay, strike this part of the bill that removes the Democrats' ability to do this or the president's ability to do this, and then we'll pass it. But they didn't do that, did they? They just said, no, we're not going to pass this under any circumstances. So if that's the case, then obviously they don't have an issue with some specific part of the bill. Obviously, they just don't want to pass it because they don't want them to give the Democrats a win or what they perceive to be as a win in the upcoming election.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. And of course, they're going to spin it. They're not going to say, oh, we did this for political reasons. Like that would
Right,
be
they can't admit that, yeah.
disastrous, right?
Of course.
So they say, oh, this was a fucking terrible bill. There's no way we'd pass this bill. This is just like they're spitting in our face with this bill.
Right.
Yeah, because that's good politics. Same reason why JD Vance can't come out and say, of course I would not support a nationwide ban on abortion. Get out of here.
Right. Mike Mills for $5 says, you can't call the media dishonest for fact-checking Vance, but have no issue with Trump or Vance saying that illegal immigrants are eating pets.
I mean,
that
I
was
do.
directed at you.
Yeah. Well, look, I do have an issue with them saying that. It's just the scope of the lie. We went back and forth on this. Obviously, we talked about, I think the scope of the lie matters.
That was the other time I screamed at you this week.
Oh, it was? Look, I don't even,
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me at all. I don't care.
Good.
So, but, yeah, look, and I believe you agreed with me that the scope of the lie is pertinent, right? Pertinent information.
Sure.
So I don't like the Trump Vance stuff about eating the pets. Obviously, creates negative stereotypes, which I constantly talk about, and everyone's like, "Oh, Adam, stereotypes are real. Shut the fuck up." So, but yeah, look, it's terrible. Trump should have never done that. He's such a ninny. Why would he do such a thing? Is that better? Are you
There you
happy?
go. Bandu Fratano says, how do you conceptualize bias? For me, bias is what people fill the blanks in their knowledge based on what they think should be there. But for most people, I feel it just means partisan. I mean, the way that
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I conceptualize it differently. I conceptualize bias as like, when you have like a project and they're like, okay, like you have to be a lawyer in the situation and we're going to give you an argument and you need to just like, we're going to assign the position to you. You're in debate club. We're going to assign the position to you and you just need to argue in favor of that. To me, that's what
Yeah,
I figure.
you want a specific outcome.
Right. To me, that's how I conceptualize bias is like, you look at this and you say, okay, I want Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to win. So I'm going to, and this is on an unconscious level to some extent, I'm going to process all information through this lens to try to make it so that the outcome is that I am constantly promoting that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz should win this election. Right. That's how I view bias. And it's like super annoying to me because it's like, okay, we've spent so much time, I think, objectively criticizing Kamala Harris and how shitty she performed to such an extent that the entire DGG subreddit has pegged me and Adam as like, just Trump simps. And yet I still get called bias by people who are on the right who say I have TDS because I don't just buy everything that Trump says. So
You
that's a
can't win this
completely,
game.
I know you can't. That's the problem. It's a completely incompatible worldviews, but people don't care. So
Yeah, I don't. The bias thing doesn't bother me so much. I don't. I mean, I think I probably am biased in certain areas, but I just like, so what? Everyone is. Who gives a fuck?
Death by Software says, as someone born in Nebraska, I thought it was cool that we were the first state to split the electoral vote. Looks like this year both Nebraska and Maine might. Do you think there'd be a massive difference if every state splits? I thought
Of course. Yeah.
Maine has been splitting their vote for a while. I thought that I don't know. But I mean that's been my position is that they should. I don't know. I believe when I looked it up, it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the Bush election where he lost the popular vote but won the electoral college, but it would have changed the Trump 2016 election, and I think Trump would have lost by literally one electoral vote. That's how close it would have been. So I guess it could theoretically change things.
I wonder how much of our audience is gonna really be depressed if Kamala wins and Trump loses. That's kind of the thing that I worry about because I just look, so much of our politics are toxic these days to the point where people, I don't think it's healthy to be this invested in politics. I guess it's hard if you're in a situation. I guess, look, I'm somewhat insulated from this, so it doesn't really affect me. But look, if you're in a place where these policies are, tangibly hurting your life, or you're, living on the edge, paycheck to paycheck, and you're just having trouble making it work at the grocery store, I guess you're far more invested in politics.
Right.
But I'm not sure if Kamala wins or if Trump wins. I'm not sure that that's going to have a big impact on inflation per se. Yeah. What do you think?
What was the question?
I
I was reading. So.
No worries.
Okay.
Well, I don't, if Kamala or Trump wins, do you think that'll have a tangible effect on inflation? Like if Kamala wins, inflation is going to go through the roof, and if Trump wins, inflation is going to go down. Do you think the decision affects the price of bread at the grocery store?
Normally I would say no. I would normally say no. The only thing I would think would have a tangible effect on inflation is if Trump won and did do the tariff, but I'm assuming he just can't do that. I think Congress would have to pass that. I don't think they would. because obviously that would increase the price of things pretty dramatically.
So you think if Trump wins, inflation is going to go up, and if Kamala
Well,
wins,
I think most likely if Trump wins, that tariff stuff isn't going to even come into fruition. It's not going to matter.
okay, so you
So I think
agree
no.
that
Yeah.
inflation is not going to be affected by the outcome of the election.
Yes, I would say I feel 80% confident that it doesn't matter who wins. The economy is going to do what the economy is going to do.
Right. Hmm. I do think immigration, look, and we've argued over this. I'm literally talking about voting for Kamala just so I could see the outcome of this immigration fight we're having. But like I said, that immigration situation is not really going to impact me. But I think, if you're living in a small town in Ohio and they're
It's a
loading
big
your town
difference.
up
Yeah,
with
sure.
immigration,
Right.
then
But see that.
then this election does seem like, life and death.
But see, I think that the immigration thing is going to have a tangible effect on who wins in terms of what they do, a lot more than I think the economy does.
Right.
Because I think the economy is just kind of this big behemoth that, the presidents generally can't control very well. So, unlike the immigration thing, they can actually they can pass just some specific law. It's going to have a tangible, direct effect on immigration policy going forward. And in fact, I forgot, but that was one of the things I thought that Vance did poorly on was allowing Tim Walz to keep pushing this concept of like we inherited, or Kamala Harris and Biden inherited this horrible economy from Donald Trump, which is, is a pretty dishonest way to frame it. It's like, well, they inherited the COVID situation. It's not really Donald Trump's fault. It's not fair to blame Donald Trump for that. And I'm kind of surprised that Vance would just let Tim Walz say that again and again and again and again, instead of just calling it out and, calling him a liar. So.
All right. Are we close?
Solid for $2 says the
are.
escort joke was referring to escorts being high-class hookers, and so their clients are mostly white men. Oh, this is from Sunday. Adam hit the nail on the head on Zach. He's the guy I said months ago who said Star Wars was always schlock. Really? Interesting. Okay,
He's just contrarian. Yeah, contrarian for contrarian's sake.
The most dope for $2 says people think you're biased, Adam, based on things like when Trump said they're eating the pets, and you were like, well, you see what he meant by that was this other thing. Even Sitch was like, what is with this hyper charity?
I never. When did I say anything about he meant this other thing?
I don't remember what you exactly said in that conversation enough to comment. So.
Yeah, I definitely didn't say that. That's for sure.
Caleb from $5 says, I appreciate that you guys try your best. No one can get rid of bias. Disclosing, acknowledging it when it's relevant is what counts. A great stream. Well, thank you so much, Caleb. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I try to look at what is what drives that bias. That's why I'm diving into this whole situation where, look, if I lived in a small town and immigrants were moving in all around and damaging my property values or whatever, I say, look, don't listen to me.
Right. Yeah.
I got a dog in this fight.
Right. Yeah.
No,
exactly. Lou Silver for $5 says America Freedom Act amendment reaffirms legal marijuana, encapsulates Roe, other pork. That'd be funny. There you go. Toxic Mix for $10 says technically the Secure the Borders Act was presented as a counter, an olive branch, where 6 is correct. And what triggers me more is I make these arguments and I'm some retard, but Trump can't. Well, I mean, that is part of what's weird about, Trump's inability to communicate effectively sometimes. It's very strange. Trump can very effectively communicate in pictures in some ways, and in other ways, he just can't. He can't seem to process new information and make effective arguments about some things, and I don't really understand why. So
he's not a great candidate. And
well,
he's got this whole, the baggage of January 6th. Imagine how the Republican candidate could fly if they didn't have that baggage.
Well, that's what was interesting. That's why, I'm listening to this. I'm like, if Vance was even here's my bias. Okay. Even though I do not like JD Vance, because I think he's a secret monarchist. I think that if he was running against Kamala Harris, he would have fucking annihilated her. He would have annihilated her in the debate, and I think he would annihilate her overall. So, WTF 1A for $5 says, I think Republicans could win if they play the male abortion rights pivot.
I don't think that.
Do you mean when you say male
I
abortion rights?
disagree.
Do you mean that like men don't have to pay for a child or something? Because I disagree with you 100%. If that's what you mean by that,
Right.
so I don't think the red pill vote's a big constituency in America. The majority of Republicans don't want there to be more deadbeat dads out there. Even though I agree with the argument from a conceptual philosophical level, it is complete 100% philosophical that the argument that the left, it's a woman's right to choose and control her body, then it should also be a man's right whether he wants to support the baby. That makes 100% conceptual, consistent sense. But I don't think any party is going to advocate for that because I think it's just not a palatable position for most Americans. D5280 for $5 says, I'm a small C conservative Catholic. I watch you for balanced takes. Y'all takes trigger me sometimes, but I fully believe you are good faith. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
That's the important thing. Like, we're not
Right.
trying to put one over on you. We're not trying to lie to you to get you to vote for our candidate, or, I mean, we're trying to figure it out just like you guys are trying to figure it out.
Anyways,
all right. This was a long stream.
it was a long stream, which I guess is good because I forgot I can't stream tomorrow anyway.
Oh, you can't? All right.
No.
Well, then it was a good job going long. I guess
I'm glad
we'll
we
see
went
everyone
long.
on Sunday.
And we'll see you guys on Sunday.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.